Good morning, America. I'm Robert McNeely. You're listening live here to Right Side Broadcasting Network as Karoline Leavitt will hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Stick with us on a day filled with news as the Schumer shutdown continues. What you're looking live at there, Statuary Hall, where the old House of Representatives used to meet. Yes, the likes of the 16th President Abraham Lincoln, when he was a congressman, debated in that very hall. Ornate, lovely, glowing, but today very serious and somber as House Speaker Mike Johnson will join Senate Majority Leader John Thune for a Republican update on what is happening in Washington, D.C. And we do know that this is the Chuck Schumer shutdown. In case you missed it, the White House showcases the nationwide support for clean continuing resolutions, the CRs, as you've heard them. Today, as part of the Democrat shutdown website, the White House introduced its interactive online map featuring letters that state legislators and community leaders across the country have written, urging swift passage of the Republicans' clean continuing resolution that we hope to see in the coming hours. The demanding that Democrats end their reckless push to hold the government hostage over free health care for illegal aliens. Now, the map showcases widespread support from voices nationwide whose states and communities are at risk of a lapse in funding for essential services due to Democrat obstruction. And earlier in the White House launched a shutdown clock to track the duration of this very Chuck Schumer shutdown, alongside a host of statements from constituents and industry stakeholders warning of the consequences of the prolonged Democrat scheme. These are the same people dating back to 2012 and 2013 who said, we can never close the government down. We must keep it open. Let's have that wide, robust debate. And you have people like Governor J.B. Pritzker to Congresswoman Ramirez of the 3rd District of Illinois, amongst others, who claim that there was no meeting that took place. But if we look at cut one, Mr. Director, that meeting happened in the Oval Office on Monday evening. President Trump, Vice President Vance, and Senate leadership with House leadership in a bipartisan fashion, but they ended up walking away, although House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries loves his Trump 2028 hat. And of course, President Trump, the master of having jest and fun with a very serious topic. But these Democrats, the proof is in the pudding. They wanted to defund rural health care and hospitals, but then in turn fund illegal aliens. It was literally written into the legislation they were proposing in the CR, and the Republicans actually fought back. As we spoke to our friend Jim Paff this week, in case you missed it, he touched on that very topic. It's amazing to see two things here. One, Republicans actually having a backbone in the Congress. And two, this use of continued CRs since 1998, something that should change. Let's toss it there to Statuary Hall at Capitol Hill. House Speaker Mike Johnson, Senate Majority Leader John Thune.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the Democrat shutdown. You can see it's pretty empty around here. There's normally a lot of activity. On an average day, we have about 7,000 visitors here in the Capitol. School children and school groups and visitors and constituents, but they're not here right now. And around the country, all around the country right now, real pain is being endured by real people because the Democrats have decided to play politics. So Leader Thune and I wanted to come out and do two things today, just give you a brief update on where things stand with this Democrat shutdown, and then to reiterate once more, present the simple facts about what we're facing. This is necessary because the Democrats have a full-out assault to spin the facts and try to pretend as though they are not what they actually are. And some of the mainstream media are participating in this as well. I was giving our leadership press conference yesterday, and in mid-sentence I was cut off by one of the networks, CNN. I hope you'll stay with us for a few more moments, because what I was about to say before they went to try to disclaim my remarks was I was about to point to the very page in Chuck Schumer's counter-proposal continuing resolution that proves the very fact that we've been stating. So let me go through that very quickly so everyone here has no question. And I want Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren and AOC and everybody else who's been trying to spin this truth to watch and try to refute what I'm about to show you. Now, here's a visual aid, okay? This is the bill. This is the counter-proposal continuing resolution that Chuck Schumer and the Senate Democrats filed. 2 weeks ago, mid-September, the House passed a clean, simple continuing resolution. It merely continues the Biden-era policies and spending that we're enduring right now for 7 more weeks to allow the appropriations process to continue. That's Republicans and Democrats in both chambers working together to get the government funded. We ran out of time because the end of the fiscal year is September 30th. We needed a few more weeks, so we sent it over. Ours is 24 pages in length. It says let's just keep the status quo so this process, this procedure, this regular order can be done. Chuck Schumer rejected that. Senate Democrats rejected that. Now 3 times they voted against that measure, and this is what they propose in advance, in exchange for that. So instead, the counterproposal, this is page 57. This is on our website. Go to speaker.gov. You can get all these visual aids for yourself, all right? Page 57, section 2141. You see the highlighted language. There's a lot of legalese in this legislation, in these bills, but it says that they want to repeal the health subtitle changes. What does that refer to? You read down here, Public Law 119-21. That's the one big beautiful bill. That's the American Families Tax Cut. What they want to do is repeal the very important and necessary changes that Republicans voted to put into law. President Trump signed that into law on July 4th, triumphantly on Independence Day. And it was a great marquee achievement for lots of reasons. Well, some of the most important provisions in that law was that it eliminated fraud and abuse of our health system. Medicaid has been rife with fraud and abuse, and so we reformed it. Why? To help provide more and better health services for the American people. Because the problem with Medicaid is it's been abused. We had so many people on Medicaid that never were intended to be there. Medicaid was written for the people who need it most, the elderly, the disabled, sometimes young pregnant women who are in difficult situations. But the resources are being drained. You know why? Because there was 2 primary categories of people that should never have been there in the first place. One was able-bodied young men who are riding the wagon who should be working. We got them back to work. And the other thing that we focused on was the illegal aliens. By the CBO's estimate, about 1.4 million illegal aliens were receiving Medicaid benefits that were intended only for U.S. citizens that met the categories I just described. They were gaming the system. They were cheating the system. And what that means is that less resources were available for the people, the Americans who actually needed it most. So we did the common sense thing, the right thing, the just thing, and we put it in the law. And the president signed that, gladly signed it into law. They want to repeal it. They want to give those resources back to illegal aliens. That's exactly what that highlighted language means. On this exhibit number 2 over here, I feel like I'm back in court. Exhibit number 2, okay? This is the specifics of what that would mean. When we say they want to give $200 billion back to illegal aliens, these are the specifics. If you read the legalese here in the language in the bill on page 57 and what follows, that's what it's talking about. These are all the various provisions in the chart over here. Those are listed in millions. So you see the final total there, $192.8 billion of your hard-earned taxpayer dollars that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats want to give back to illegal aliens. That's a fact, and nobody can refute it. Now, look, what we've done is very simple. We sent over a continuing clean resolution. This is standard practice around here. And all the Democrats who are voting against it in the Senate right now, every single one of them have given impassioned speeches about how you must pass continuing resolutions, you must pass CRs, you should never shut down the government because it's dangerous and destructive and selfish and wrong. Well, suddenly they've changed their tune. We're playing, I invite you all after the press conference to go by the Speaker's office in the hallway there, and you can see the highlight reel of all of them saying this passionately, as recently as March of this last year when Chuck Schumer led his caucus to vote for the same CR. They did it 13 times during the Biden administration in the previous 4 years, but suddenly they won't do it. So everybody has to ask themselves why. It has nothing to do with health care. The subsidies that they're saying is the issue is not the issue. That is an issue for the end of the year. December 31 is when that expires. So Congress has 3 months to negotiate that. Certainly we could work on it in the month of October to find some consensus and figure that out, what reforms there may be necessary to make all that happen. Republicans are committed to the health care of Americans. We have already proven that we are making health care more efficient and effective and more available so that we can bring down cost and premiums and improve quality of care. We put the goods on paper. We're doing that. And the CBO analysis that came out August 25th said that these changes that we put in our bill are doing exactly that. The Congressional Budget Office is not a Republican shop, as you all know. They typically go against what I'm doing, okay, but they had to admit that this is going to make 2.3 ineligible recipients no longer on the Medicaid rolls. It's going to save $185 billion for taxpayers. That's exactly what we promised, and that's what's going to be achieved. But we have more reforms coming to try to fix Obamacare, which is not working for the people. But you need common sense, responsible Republicans who are serious about policy to fix that for the people, and that's what we're working to do. The Democrats are stalling that because they need a political talking point. And why? Because Chuck Schumer, who leads the Democrats, is terrified that he's not going to win back his Senate seat. He's afraid that the Marxist far-left corner of his base is going to challenge him in New York. Maybe many of you have noticed New York is probably going to elect a Marxist for mayor. He's terrified by that development. Chuck Schumer is a far-left progressive politician, but he's not far enough left for this base. And so he's got to show a fight against the president. He's got to show that he's fighting Republicans. And because they're playing political games and they're not doing what he himself said passionately as recently as 6 months ago that must be done, that you passed a standard bipartisan CR. Because he needs political cover, he is dragging the American people through this. And who's getting hurt? Women, infants, and children, nutrition programs that are now stalled. Veterans' health services that will not be provided. People who are low-income Medicare recipients who receive telehealth and health treatment at home. Many of those programs are not being funded. We have troops and TSA agents and Border Patrol agents who are working without pay, protecting the country. And you have FEMA services, health insurance policies, for example, that are being stalled in the middle of a hurricane season because the Democrats want to play political games and try to obscure the real facts at issue. We challenge them. We challenge them to tell us why they're not trying to give illegal aliens health care again when they put it in their own bill. This is not Republicans playing games. I could have put Republican conservative priorities on the CR and sent it over there, but I didn't. And so when you all ask me why aren't you negotiating with them, I don't have anything to negotiate. Leader Thune and I can't take off Republican priorities that we put in the CR and say, hey, is that better? Could you vote for that? Because we didn't put them on there in the first place. Why? Because Republicans are being responsible. We're operating in good faith, and we're trying to get the Democrats to do their job, and they won't. Those are the simple facts, and they cannot be obscured. I'm so grateful for the strong leadership of my colleague and partner over in the Senate, and I'd love Leader Thune to give you a little update here.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Speaker is right. We have an opportunity to pick up a House-passed bill that, if it passes the Senate, will be sent to the White House, the President will sign it, and the government will reopen. It's that simple and that straightforward, and that's all we're talking about here. All we need is a handful more Democrats. We have a majority of senators, 55 senators, have already voted for this clean, short-term, nonpartisan CR. As the Speaker said, no policy riders, no gimmicks, nothing in here that benefits Republicans. This is a straight-up 7-week funding resolution, and we need it to keep the government open. And if we don't keep the government open, you'll have all the things that the Speaker just alluded to, all the Americans who are adversely impacted by this government shutdown. Now, this is something, as you all know, as recently as the last administration, during the Biden administration, when the Democrats had the majority here in the United States Senate, the Democrats on 13 different occasions voted for this, a short-term continuing resolution. Now, I have to ask, what's changed? What's different about this? What's different is who's in the White House. That's what it's about. It's all about President Trump and the Democrats needing to pick a fight to satisfy their far-left political base, far-left activist organizations who are the tail wagging the dog right now. That's all this is about. And you have a Democrat leader from New York in the Senate, a Democrat leader in the House from New York, and you have a mayoral race in New York, you've got AOC, you've got all these people that are bringing pressure to bear on what should be a routine, simple, straightforward proposition, and that is a short-term continuing resolution to keep the government funded, which is sitting right now. This is sitting at the Senate desk. We will have a vote another hour or two, and it'll be the fourth time that Democrats will have an opportunity to vote to keep the government open. Now, at some point, reason, good sense, common sense has to take effect here, because that's really what this is. They brought to us, and the Speaker alluded to all the impacts on illegals and free health care programs in this country, a bill loaded with $1.5 trillion in new spending, which includes all these provisions. And they want to load that onto a 7-week continuing resolution to fund the government. Now, what's happening right now when the government is shut down, all the things that we could be doing, the defense authorization bill, which benefits every congressional district, every state across this country, is languishing right now because we are shut down. The other appropriations bills, we have people in the Senate, both Republicans and Democrats, and frankly Democrats I think especially, because they haven't had a chance to be heard in the appropriations process for a really long time. Because when Chuck Schumer ran the Senate, we didn't do appropriations bills. We didn't put them on the floor. They marked them up in committee and then they died. And then he wrote it behind closed doors in his office. That's the difference. We are opening this process up, and one of the things that's not getting done while the government is shut down is an appropriations process that allows us to fund the government the old-fashioned way in the light of day. We aren't working on permitting reform, which should be a bipartisan priority. We aren't working on a farm bill. We got a lot of farm policy this summer in the Working Families Tax Cuts bill, but there's more to do there. Those should be bipartisan things that we could be working together on, along with appropriations. All those things aren't getting done right now because Senate Democrats have chosen to shut the government down. They have an opportunity, a fourth time today, to vote to open up the government and to allow us to do the rest of the work that the American people expects us to do. They have taken hostage the federal government and, by extension, the American people, who are the only losers in this. Everybody's talking about who wins and who loses and who gets the blame. That's not what this is about. This is about what's doing in the best interest of the American people. And what's in the best interest of the American people is keeping the government open and operating so it can continue to work on their behalf.
A few questions? Yeah, right.
Are you at all concerned that this decision by the administration to block some of these infrastructure projects, to take some of these blue states and target them, that could backfire on the momentum you guys have to try and break the stalemate and open up the government?
So the question is about the executive and the White House and what they're doing in this situation. Everybody needs to understand how this works. When Congress decides to turn off the lights, to shut the government down, it shifts the authority to the executive branch. That's how the process works. The person who has decided to put the White House in that situation is Chuck Schumer, who leads the Democrats, the 44 who keep voting to keep the government from opening up. They're voting to shut it down. So what happens in that situation? Whoever is the president, whoever is sitting in the White House, and their staffs at the Office of Management and Budget are given an unenviable task. It's a regretful situation. They have to then determine, since the spigots have been effectively turned off and there's no more money coming in, they have to then prioritize, triage effectively, federal spending. They have to look at all of that and say, you know, which things are deemed essential and which are non-essential, which priorities, policies, and personnel must be kept to keep the government operating, and which are less of a priority. So whomever is sitting in the White House gets to then apply their lenses of review. We happen to have a Republican, a conservative administration. We're very grateful for that. We're limited government conservatives. We think the government's too big. We think the federal government is too big. It does too many things, and it does almost nothing well. And so it serves the taxpayers to send less of their hard-earned money to Washington and keep more in their pockets. That's what we're advancing through the One Big Beautiful Bill and all the legislative priorities that we achieve. But see, sometimes Democrats, not sometimes, all the time, Democrats don't agree with that because they love big government. I mean, listen to them. They want the government to control every aspect of your lives, and they need all of your hard-earned dollars to do that. In fact, they'd like to take them all. That's what the socialists are arguing for. That's what the Marxists believe. We believe the opposite. So here's this situation. Here's the president, the current occupant of the White House, that's been given this opportunity by Chuck Schumer. And he's a limited government conservative. He's looking at that and saying, gee, you know, this is inefficient, this is ineffective. And we'd never get Democrat votes to limit that because they never vote to limit government, ever. It's against their religion. But he has that opportunity now to say this is a program that would serve the American people if it were not funded, because government would be more efficient and effective, and that serves everyone. So they're going to make those decisions. Now, are they taking great pleasure in that? No. Is he trolling the Democrats? Yes. I mean, yes, because that's what President Trump does, and people are having fun with this. But at the end of the day, the decisions are tough ones. And I've met with him. I talked yesterday at length with Russ Vought, who's the director of the Office of Management and Budget. Russ takes no pleasure in this. Russ wants to see a smaller, more efficient, more lean, effective federal government as we do, but he doesn't want people to lose jobs. He doesn't want to do that, but he has, that's his responsibility. So he's very carefully, methodically, very deliberately looking through that to see which decisions can be made in the best interest of the American people. That's his obligation, and that's his real desire. The president takes no pleasure in this, but if Chuck Schumer is going to give Donald Trump the opportunity to determine what the priorities are, he's going to exercise that opportunity, and that's where we are. Chad.
Explain something for you. How could you say that they take no pleasure in this, and then the next minute say, oh, they're just having fun and trolling people? This is a government shutdown. On one hand, you say this is very serious, that people's jobs are on the line. On the other hand, you say, oh, this is just fun and games and they're trolling.
So the effects are very serious on real people, real Americans. We support federal employees who do a great job in all these different areas, but what they're trying to have fun with, trying to make light of, is to point out the absurdity of the Democrats' position, and they're using memes and all the tools of social media to do that. Some people find that entertaining, but at the end of the day, the decisions are hard ones, and I'm telling you, they're not taking any pleasure in that. Yes, Jake.
The Democrats are saying they would like you and the leader to put in writing that you want, how you'll handle the Obamacare stuff.
So Jake is asking the Democrats' latest demand. Apparently, I haven't heard that, but they want us to put in writing how some of these unresolved questions will be resolved. Here's the problem. Some of the issues that they're bringing to the table and they're demanding immediate, easy answers for are not easy answers, and they take a long time to deliberate. That is the process. This is a deliberative body and a very large one. We got 435 over there and 100 over here. We can't snap our fingers and he and I and two other leaders in a room go, oh, well, this is the resolution. That's not how it works. So what we're trying to do to buy the extra time to get to November 21st is to give both chambers and this whole body 7 more weeks to figure that out. So it's not an easy solution. They know that very well. They know it as well as we do. But they're using that as a red herring because they want to drag this along so they can get political points. Yes.
Do you take any responsibility for what's happening, and what is the justification for not holding votes in your chamber this week and potentially yours this weekend when there are some bipartisan conversations happening in the Senate? Why not just stay here and work this out?
I'll give you my quick answer. I'll yield to the leader, but my quick answer is very simple. The House did its job. The House sent a bipartisan, very simple, very conventional 24-page continuous resolution to keep the lights on. And we sent it over, we passed it, and it's been rejected by the Senate. So the House will come back into session and do its work as soon as Chuck Schumer allows us to reopen the government. That's plain and simple.
Right. Well, and as I mentioned, all the things we aren't doing, right? So we're in a shutdown posture here because of Senate Democrats. There is united support, House Republicans, Senate Republicans, a few Senate Democrats, the President of the United States, in support of opening the government back up. And right now it's being blocked by the Senate Democrats. And all it takes, as you point out, is a handful more. We get 4 or 5 more votes and we can actually pass this thing. And there are discussions going on with our colleagues on both sides of the aisle. But at some point they have to take yes for an answer. I mean, the things that people want, and I don't disagree with this at all, is a normal appropriations process, putting bills on the floor, getting conference passed bills on the floor of the House and Senate so we can actually fund the government the old-fashioned way. And I'm all for that, and we've made that very clear to them. We can't make commitments or promises on the COVID subsidies because that's not something that we can guarantee that there are the votes there to do. But what I've said is I'm open to having conversations with our Democrat colleagues about how to address that issue. And I think that but that can't happen while the government is shut down. I mean, we've got to open up the government. And with respect to our schedule, like I said, I don't know how many times you're going to give them a chance to vote no. And hopefully over the weekend, they'll have a chance to think about it. And maybe some of these conversations start to result in something to where we can start moving some votes and actually get this thing passed. But there's nothing to be gained at this point by negotiating something that there's nothing to negotiate. I mean, I think that's essentially where we are. This is, again, a straightforward, simple solution to keep the government open. And then all these other issues that we're talking about, we're happy to sit down and have conversations.
The president said that this is an unprecedented opportunity to make cuts to programs. Do you see that as an unprecedented opportunity? And is that helpful toward these bipartisan negotiations? You mentioned you only need a handful more Democrats.
Well, I mean, as the Speaker pointed out, when you're in a shutdown situation, you have to manage the government. And any administration is going to make decisions based on their priorities. Figure out where to move money from here to here, this agency, this department, these employees. That's the situation the Democrats have put the administration in. Now, to your point, I mean, I think they're going to make decisions that are consistent with their priorities. And yes, they're going to have a different political view of the world than the Democrats might have, but that's what the Democrats have wrought by doing this. They are allowing the administration to do the very thing that back in March they said they didn't want to give them the authority to do, and that's to make decisions just like that. But that's what's going to happen. And again, why I'm at a loss to explain the strategy behind this, other than it generates contributions and activist energy support from the far left of the Democrat Party. If you're a Republican or a Democrat here in the Senate or in the House for that matter, who actually wants to get results and get things done, you're losing that opportunity by keeping the government shut down, and you're also handing the administration an opportunity to do things that probably in most cases you're not going to agree with.
Last question. Is out with a new poll that shows overwhelming support, including among Republicans, to extend the Obamacare subsidies. I know you both said you want to reform them. So do you commit to doing something to address those subsidies so that insurance premiums don't spike for Americans?
Republicans commit to continue the work that we've already been doing and demonstrating to bring down costs and improve quality of care. We are committed to that, and we will do whatever is necessary to make it happen. This is one of many issues that have to be deliberated and discussed through our process. What we're asking the Democrats to do, I'll close as we began. Please open the government so we can do that work, so that all the members of both chambers can be here to do the work, to legislate and to deliberate. They've stopped our ability to do that with these political antics, and we hope it ends. Thank you all for being here.
People are furloughed. Why the firings?
So the proof is in the pudding. The Democrats are responsible for this shutdown. House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senator John Thune laying it out, staying there in the Capitol. Oh, and mind you, yesterday was Yom Kippur, the holiest of days for the Jewish people in celebration. So the Republican side of the aisle respecting that, unlike the other side, who's claiming that, to quote many of these Democrats, including the Schumer leadership, that Republicans are taking a vacation. That is not true. The Democrats have shut this down because they want to fund illegal alien health care, because they want to defund rural hospitals. It's right there in what was proposed for the continuing resolution. So it's rather simple. So Democrats, come on back. Let's sit down at the table and act like adults and get this done and reopen this government, especially for those so they could be paid on time, those in uniform and those defending our country to the highest extent. In the military, within our police, our paramedics, and uniformed services. Now, big news out of Florida, specifically that last week, the state just announced $60 million in research for cancer. So what does that mean for you? allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN does have life-saving medications, more affordable and easier to obtain than anywhere else. 25% off ivermectin, mebendazole, also with code RSBN10, which if you have been watching, we have been running for quite some time now. So a whole host of large savings in the fall flu season. What makes the difference is they're focused on affordable drugs and pharmaceuticals that make the massive difference. So allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, you will find that many of these medications, over 200 in fact, have received Nobel Peace Prizes dating back 40 years. And the problem is Big Pharma doesn't like the generics. They can't make a lot of money off of it. So that's where All Family Pharmacy comes in. They provided ivermectin and essential medications like mebendazole, NAD+, methylene blue, and emergency medical kits, antivirals, Tamiflu, antibiotics, among many more. When you have access to the right medications and a pharmacy that's fighting for you without the red tape, without the bureaucracy, simply a pharmaceutical note so that you can obtain these, that's the place to go. So allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, working overtime for you. Scan that QR code now. Get the extra 10% off of the life-saving medications with RSBN 10, or, in fact, 25% off ivermectin, mebendazole. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Monetary Gold, Wealth, Securities, Preservation. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide now with that handsome gentleman, number 45 and 47. Call today. Do not delay. Ask how you can eliminate your IRA fees permanently and for life. 888-617-7994. RSBNforthegold.com. President Trump's friend, Robert Kiyosaki. You might have heard this brilliant man's name, an author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, dating back roughly 20 years. I remember reading that late in high school and thinking, wow, this is really how I have to keep in mind to frame and shape my life with my own savings. And you really can't get started too early. But whether it's wanting to buy that first home or wanting to create generational wealth for your kids and grandkids, you can find all of your specific plan here with the complimentary presidential gold guide. We know that 2 banks have failed this year alone. We spoke to David Schroeder this week, the expert and spokesperson for Monetary Gold. Almost 500 banks failing under Barack Hussein Obama's tenure, 16 of those banks failing between the first term and second terms of President Trump. So where does that leave you? Because regardless of who's in charge, and even though we have tariffs bringing back billions of dollars into the country, there's still $37 trillion of debt, maybe $1 trillion more being added to that thanks to our federal government and our Congress, who can't keep the House in order. Remember, they're responsible for spending. So gold, silver, these precious metals that have stood the test of time for over 5,000 years of human history, you should really think about putting some of that wealth into those tangibles that can keep you safe and to prevent, God forbid, another Great Depression. So again, RSBNforthegold.com, 888-617-7994. That's Monetary Gold, Wealth, Security, Preservation. It's all there for you today. Kalshi.com/RSBN. We hope you're enjoying some October baseball, and they are making their trades and bets on what will happen as we go into the divisional series this weekend. But who will win the Nobel Peace Prize? I believe President Trump is one of those top dogs in that race, whether it's Congressman McGuire, who we interviewed yesterday, to Congresswoman Tenney in New York, to Congressman Buddy Carter in Georgia, amongst countless others, including the government of Pakistan, to Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, all nominating him for that Nobel Peace Prize, Oslo, Norway's largest award. Think about that. 7 wars solved in 7 months as we go into 8 months of this grand second term. Will President Zelensky meet with President Putin before January? All of those questions being asked and traded on at Kalshi.com. It's music to sports to politics and the culture as a whole. All things that are either challenging the American ethos or celebrating our grand republic. Kalshi.com/RSBN. Check them out today. Scan that QR code there. It's a lot of fun. After you, of course, save some wealth in gold, then you can start trading on those fun questions as we are at 11:34 on the East Coast, 8:34 on the West Coast. Good morning, America. Karoline Leavitt will hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock Eastern. We look forward to that and bringing you really a week full of news, really highlighted by the Chuck Schumer shutdown and exclusive interviews as well. Beginning with Troy Miller, the National Religious Broadcasters president and CEO. He had the gracious timing to sit down with us and speak about not only the upcoming conference at the Gaylord Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, come this February, but also the opportunity for you to get involved and to keep speaking your mind while reflecting on who really became the modern Apostle Paul, Charlie Kirk, our friend. We're still reminiscing, we're still sharing stories, and what has gone from pain and tears and sorrow still during this period of grief, really turning to smiles of joy, thinking about the countless lives he affected for the better over the course of 31 short years. And my gratitude specifically to the United States Senate, who, before the shutdown, unanimously signaling October 14th, which would have been his 32nd birthday, as Charlie Kirk Day, and countless states and churches and other government bodies acknowledging that day. So that'd be quite a celebration as we approach that in this October month. A beautiful fall harvest ahead of us, including every day we must defend against the threats that are out there. And I think it was very clear the 80th session of the UN General Assembly last week, where President Trump went and spoke up against communism, globalism, Islamism, but also speaking to countries' respective sovereignties, all while an escalator failed, a teleprompter fails, and then the volume was not good within the hall. A triple whammy, which the Secret Service is now looking into. But regardless of all that, we know that we are bound together in this movement to make America great again, to speak truth to power, just as Charlie did. So if Mr. Producer, that interview is ready, we had a wonderful time speaking with Troy Miller of the National Religious Broadcasters, otherwise known as NRB. He's the president and CEO, stopping by to share some thoughts. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network's live desk. It's Troy Miller, President and CEO of the National Religious Broadcasters. What a wonderful organization, Troy. I've been looking over it, and I understand that you have an upcoming gathering, a big conference come February in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thanks for having me, first of all, today. And thanks for the great compliments. Look, NRB is the largest organization that represents Christian communicators in the country and really around the world. And we do an annual conference. It'll be in Nashville, Tennessee, as you said, February 17th through the 20th. It'll be, the largest gathering of Christian communicators under one roof. We'll have an exhibit floor of over 60,000 square feet, over 260 exhibitors. We'll be running sessions all day long on either the latest issues that are going on in the culture or the latest things that are going on in Christian broadcasting or communication. So it's a great place to come, to network, to learn. And hey, you might even meet some of your favorite TV or radio or podcast personalities walking the halls.
An exciting time. We hope to be amongst that media row, so we'll be in contact about that. Troy, I'd love your thoughts on the latest hope for peace in the Middle East, with President Trump, Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu coming together, really what has looked to be a new two-state solution, not the traditional what you've seen before, namely because out of these 20 or so points, it's really demanding that Hamas lay down its weapons once and for all. Are there hopes with this? Because in a matter of hours, minutes, or even days, we could have a thumbs up or a thumbs down from Palestine.
Well, look, I mean, there's always hopes for peace. That's what we are looking for. We'd love nothing more than to see peace in the region. And look, it's peace for both people. It's going to help the Jewish people, and a lot of people don't understand who've never been there. It's going to help the Arab Palestinian people. I mean, to get Hamas out of the picture is huge, because people who use their own people as human shields, that they're not looking at the best interests of their own communities. So that's something we need to work on as well. Whether or not Hamas accepts this, I don't know. I think they are too dug into their ideology to step back. And look, behind that, we have a problem with the Palestinian Authority and the whole two-state solution. You know, one of the things they need to do is recognize Israel's right to exist. So until that really happens, I'm not sure we're going to get to where we want to. I think you have what you've shown is what we've seen here is we have a U.S. willing to make this work. We have Israel's leadership willing to make this work. The question is, will the Palestinians, will the Arabs, will the Islamic world come around and want to make this work?
Yes, and it seems as if Jordan to Egypt to Turkey to the UAE, the Gulf states really combining in the loudest voice since the Abraham Accords. Even prior to that, it was the Abraham Accords that I think really turned this new direction towards peace in a grander way than we have ever seen. And President Trump has remained committed to the peace through strength MAGA doctrine. That means talking to friends and to foes and trying to get on the same page. Someone who has been very clear, whether or not people like President Trump or agree or disagree with him, there's beyond a shadow of a doubt, he has pursued peace through dialogue. And that's been really a different approach in the last 25 years of American foreign policy, whether it be from neoconservatives or neoliberals. This is a new approach, so I think it's very exciting. Please talk to us as well about our friend Charlie Kirk, because what a life and a legacy he left. Someone who started fighting for free speech, free enterprise, and the constitutional foundation of this country, that our rights come from God, but in turn, he somewhat ended up as America's pastor. So some of your thoughts from NRB and what Charlie left, big shoes to fill, quite a legacy.
Well, he did leave quite a legacy there. And I think the biggest legacy Charlie left was he really did care about people. I mean, that's the core of what Charlie was behind everything that Charlie did. You know, here was a young man that came out of, his youth, came out of sort of partly out of college and said, look, I really care about this country and I care about my generation and the generation that's coming up behind me. Not that he didn't care about older people and the generations beyond him, but he really cared about them, and that was a deep care, not a superficial, I want to win talking points, or I just want to win debates, or that. He really he cared about where people were, where they are at their lives, what their future was going to be like. And I think you said it well. He was not an official pastor that I know of, but I think he became a shepherd to the next generation. I think he really played that role. He was trying to lead them down the right path. He was trying to lead them to the right answers that they were looking for, the truth that was out there. And he was trying to protect them from the wolves that are out there in the society. And that look, I wish more pastors would be doing what Charlie Kirk was doing. He'll be greatly missed. And look, he should be with us. Think about it for a second. If Charlie didn't stand up, and I believe this with all my heart, if Charlie didn't stand up for the Christian foundation that was behind his beliefs, not just conservatism, not just fiscal or social conservative, it was the Christian foundations behind his belief that this other man took his life for. And more pastors need to stand up and take that risk that Charlie took, and he knew he was taking that risk.
And speak to that as well, Troy. That's what we're called to by the gospel. Christians are meant to enter the arena to correct errors, and we understand that we are fallen and that each individual person, because of our own sin, put Jesus Christ on that cross. And the Apostle Paul really understood that very well, and he had such hope and such optimism, although most of his life after his conversion, he was jailed literally in that moment, still reaching out to the Philippians, to the Corinthians, and countless people of his time, to the Romans who were literally imprisoning him, saying, I love you as a brother in Christ. And to my brothers and sisters, you can look back to the Greek translation. He wanted to commune with those that might have stood against him. And how can we, as pastors, as lay people, as believers and followers of Jesus Christ, continue to enter the arena and be unafraid to be marred by sweat and tears and blood, as Teddy Roosevelt spoke of in his famous speech, Citizenship in a Republic? Is it not ours to really fight and stand for as the hands and feet of Jesus Christ?
Well, I think it's great because Paul is our great example, right? And he told us, imitate me as I try to imitate Christ. He said that at least on three occasions in his writings. And he was never about a no risk Christianity. He knew the risk. I mean, as you said, he was shipwrecked. He slept out in the wilderness. He had persecution. He was left stoned and left for dead. His life was constantly under threat by all areas. Everybody, the Jews he was trying to help, the Gentiles he was trying to help, out there, he was all there. And yet it didn't faze him one bit that he stayed true to the message of the gospel. And that's, again, one of the things I think that was really Charlie did so well was he met people where they're at. He didn't personally attack them, but he didn't waver from the sin in their lives or the things that was going on. He didn't water down his message in order to make people feel better about themselves or happy or even comfortable in their lives. He often said things that made people uncomfortable. Now, people who didn't want to hear that, they take that as hate. But Charlie was the farthest from hate I think you could get. And I think you'd say that about the Apostle Paul. I think Paul was the farthest from hate you could get for people because he saw the eternal consequences for people. And that's what we need to do. That's the legacy of Charlie Kirk that we need to pick up as Christian leaders and Christian pastors across this country. We need to pick that legacy up to love people enough to see the eternal consequences. What does it mean when they stand in front of God? What does it mean when they have to give an account in front of God? What does it mean for us when we didn't tell them the truth, when we soft shooted, or we were more worried about our likes on social media, or how well we were, accepted at all the church socials or invited to the right church functions? How well did that all matter? Or do we take this? Christianity has a lot of risk with it. I understand that, but I'm not going to waver from the truth.
It's a glorious message, and when you really reflect upon the history of it, for believers and non-believers alike, I think you can put it in two different compartments. Either these people spread the gospel in the first 70 to 80 years after Christ, which all of the apostles, died martyr's death outside of John, who wrote Revelation while exiled in Cyprus. But in modern Europe, throughout Asia, into northern Africa, they spread that gospel in a glorious way. So either they were complete lunatics and maniacs, or it is the truth, worth laying down your life for, worth getting up and becoming fishers of men. And I think, yes, the greatest modern example of that, at least in the American church, is someone like a Charlie Kirk, who went onto a college campus, who said, this is actually happening, come join me. And countless parents, having been an alum from Turning Point USA and having had Charlie as a boss, I was appalled at times, but what I saw from the far left, that was, oh my goodness, I didn't know it existed until I started working there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are waking up to that too. That last part, that a lot of people don't know how radical and how deep the hate is on the far left, and the blindness even to hear the message. Charlie took the gospel, as it said, he took it to heart, that we're to be the light on the hill, right? We're to be that light for that city on the hill. And he took that into the dark places. College campuses are rough places today. These are liberal left thinking bastions of paganism and secularism, and a lot of them today in socialism and communism. And he took those messages right to them. And I love the way he did it. If you ever watch it, Ian, people should go out and watch Charlie's, I don't even call them debates, just his conversations on those college campuses. They should look out at him and say, look at that and say, this is how you have that conversation. This is how you talk to people. This is how you reach them with the gospel message. And this is how you show the greatest love. We hear this all the time in the church. Oh, I don't want to do that because that's not loving my neighbor. I don't want to say that because that's not loving my neighbor. Charlie loved his neighbor enough to tell them the truth of the gospel, not to hide it from them.
It takes no extra skill to have courage, but sometimes it's that fire in our belly and our heart working with mind and faith and reason that comes through. And Charlie truly exemplified it. Thank you, Troy Miller, for the reflection today. For those viewers who might not have known prior to our interview about the National Religious Broadcasters, how can they get involved and how can they help spread that gospel message?
Yeah, you can go on nrb.org and find out all the things that we're working on. We have a number of legislations. We advocate for Christian communicators to stay in this public space, to have these kinds of programs and conversations out there, so you can see all of that, and you can track us on all of our social media. So nrb.org.
I will definitely be following myself, Troy, and I hope to see you before the February convention. But if not until then, God be with you, my friend. And thank you for visiting us on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Thanks for having me today.
Truly a pleasure having Troy Miller on from the National Religious Broadcasters. We look forward to that great conference in February as Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock Eastern. Thank you to angelpaste.com. The Miracle Cream, the OG cream. You've seen me use it right here at the network. I use it on a daily basis. It is filled with vitamin Bs. It's non-GMO. It's no chemicals, as is their orange option, but vitamin C infused. Very good this time of year to give you an extra bolster. And then you avoid all of those things from red dyes and blue dyes and the anti-Maha work that's happening. Hey, breaking news, Walmart actually will get rid of its dyes from its brand foods in the coming months. So that's exciting. Joining places like Angel Paste that want healthy, good things to put onto your skin. Nothing to ingest here as you would with a grocery store, but you need these kind of things as the weather gets drier and your skin gets all that, just cracked and nasty. And then if you shake a hand, it doesn't look very pleasant on the other end, the receiving end, to see a cracked, dry hand. Rather gross. So always good to keep your skin tip-top, healthy, and in shape. You can also paint the town red with their facial spray for guys and gals. They're Christian-owned. They're out of Spring, Texas, right off the Gulf of America. Experience the miracle that is angelpaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And covepure.com/RSBN, $200 off this reverse osmosis machine with its clear water technology that is dominating the competition. Remember the water crisis in Flint, Michigan happened some years ago? You think America would have gotten its act together by now with clean pipes and no lead in the water. But think again, the lead and heavy metals still showing up in your tap water. Many are older than your grandparents. So that's rather nasty to think of pipes that are transporting water that are simply not being taken care of, mostly by Democrat leadership in big city. Now, what's flowing through them is not what you want your kids to drink. We know that to be true. That's why Cove Pure Water Purifier is one of the greatest in the business. The clear water technology, removing 99.9% of the poisons out of the tap water. Now, the EPA itself admits millions of Americans still exposed to lead in the tap water. And that exposure, by the way, doesn't make your water taste like you're chewing on a car battery. It's disgusting. It causes brain damage, cancer, and long-term health issues. But sure, trust the city council with your children's brain. I mean, they can't be even close to being right. Cove Pure is the obvious fix. Their clear wave water technology will lead to 99.9% of those impurities, as mentioned before, out of the tap water. Let's get the lead, the fluoride, the pharmaceuticals, all of the nastiness out of the water. In fact, Utah and Florida passing legislation to do just that. And Secretary Kennedy, someone who can pat himself on the back because he's been right about this issue for countless years, fighting the big pharma, fighting these corporations and these outlets that led to toxins in the water. So drink pure, live pure, covepure.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code there now, $200 off. And Perplexity, you might be interested in this new browser that they have called Comet. It is AI powered. You can unlock 1 month of Rumble Premium for free if signing up with this. Browse at the speed of thought with Comet. Get started at pplx.ai. RSBN. Let me ask you something. How much time do you spend browsing? I'm sure it takes up a lot of your time during the day. The searching, the scrolling, the typing, the address research, it's a lot. So Comet is changing the way you browse. Now, using Comet feels like having a personal assistant living right there in your web browser. Yes, do the things, not just give answers, but actually things like clicking, typing, searching, scrolling, making reservations, booking travel, summarizing articles, scheduling meetings, all of that got a lot easier. So, for example, I could type into Comet, powered by Perplexity, find a great Mexican restaurant in Austin, Texas. I'm going to be there on Wednesday night for a business meeting. This Comet will book it, send a calendar invite, and even email my colleagues for that dinner. So, number one, Comet doesn't just give answers. It actually gets things done for you. Number two, because it is a web browser, it can also use all of the accounts linked together to take action on the web. Number three, Comet takes actions like a human online, clicking, typing, scrolling, all of the above to fill out forms just like you want. So save time and mental energy with Perplexity's Comet. Browse at the speed of thought with Comet, pplx.ai/RSBN, our newest sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And unlock that 1 month of free premium Rumble as 1 hour from now, roughly 65 minutes away, a scheduled press briefing with Karoline Leavitt. Stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're covering everything this week. What a big week. Bringing down the cost of prescriptions to potential peace in Gaza throughout the Middle East. We've never seen so many Arab and Middle Eastern nations coming together with Israel and the United States to call on Hamas to lay down its arms. Something that I think Ernest Hemingway would be very, very proud of. We have to use our words. We have to speak for peace, advocate for that in a non-violent manner. So an exciting development as we watch all of that on the world stage. And, of course, the latest from the Palestinian Senator Chuck Schumer and the lockdown he created because he wants to fund illegal aliens and get rid of funding for rural hospitals throughout America. The proof is in the pudding. House Speaker Johnson and Senator John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, actually bringing that up earlier today in that press conference. Let's take a quick commercial break for sponsors and stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live as we are approaching high noon on the East Coast and 9 o'clock on the West Coast. Always a joy to be with you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network's live desk on a gorgeous day in the Federal City. It's also a crisp fall day right here in East Alabama, the loveliest village on the plains. In fact, Auburn. I was actually listening to the meteorologist in local news. I did not realize that this part of the country, so southwestern Georgia and eastern Alabama, southeast Alabama along the border, it gets a bit dry September and October, which is somewhat of a relief because of the hot, humid summer, especially in southern Alabama and throughout southern Georgia. So it's important to get that cream, as in angelpaste.com, one of the great sponsors here, to keep your skin glowing during this time of year. But how refreshing it is to see that sun shining on a gorgeous October day. I pray it's the same for you in your neck of the woods and especially across the world. We appreciate those who tune in from Australia. I saw that last night in the Voice of Reason, someone coming in from Australia, down under. I'd love to visit one of these days. So thank you for doing that. And feel free to write in feedback at rsbn.tv if you wish to opine. And I concur with the viewers here. This is your go-to live desk. Always a joy to be with all of you on this Friday. Thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Did you know that Florida putting $60 million of investments into cancer research? How exciting is that? So where does All Family Pharmacy come in? Well, it's 25% off life-saving medications like mebendazole, ivermectin, code RSBN10 for an extra 10% off. Scan that QR code there now, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. They have life-saving medications that are affordable. Isn't that nice? Because that pharmacy down the street, they might be working with a big pharma and an insurance company to block you from getting things like ivermectin, mebendazole, NAD+, methylene blue, emergency medical kits, including Tamiflu, antivirals, antibacterials, among many, many others. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code there now. And thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. It's no red tape, no bureaucracy, just great medication that can get to your door 48 hours from now if you order right now at 12:01 Eastern. We're excited to partner with doctors, pharmacists, and nurses who are great patriots at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And speaking of great patriots out there, we had the chance to sit down with Drianna Sixto, a friend of the network and Turning Point Action's newest spokesperson, to get her thoughts on a big week of news. Welcome back to the live desk. It's Drianna Sixto, Turning Point Action spokesperson. Lots happening this week with a potential peace deal. America and Israel having a two-state solution, but unlike a two-state solution of the past, it really means Hamas has to lay down its arms, and we're within minutes, if not hours, of them saying a yes or a no. Drianna, what's your take on this?
I think that a lot of Americans are just holding their breath for this to happen. I think that Donald Trump got into office because so many Americans were tired and fed up of recurring wars. He promised to start no new wars, and I think it should be, or it doesn't have to be said, that funding additional wars is part of that deal, right? And so I think that that's what this country wants. I think that overall peace in the Middle East, it's been this thing that has been treated as a joke for a very long time, but it is absolutely possible. And if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen under this presidency, because we know that, unfortunately, Democrats love to be warmongers. Historically, a lot of Republicans as well. If this is to happen, it's going to be under President Trump, and I think it will. So I'm keeping a positive outlook on it. I think that Americans just want to have our taxpayer dollars be taking care of people here in the U.S. that so desperately need it.
Oh, that is so true. I look back to modern presidencies. I mean, even President Carter, President Reagan, President Bush 41, all very, very cautious with specific engagements. Then you have Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Hussein Obama throwing over missiles like it was I don't know, ordering up Sunday pancakes. It didn't make a lot of sense.
Yep.
And of course, the auto pen left us with a very dangerous world as a result of that power vacuum that occurred. You know, something that was really quite interesting for me as well. The 80th session of the UN General Assembly, we had France, Canada, and the United Kingdom really do a 180 on foreign policy and endorse the two-state solution, but also recognize Hamas in the so-called state of Palestine. But even that, they're endorsing President Trump and Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu's approach. So perhaps we see that change. Now, here stateside, as you were mentioning with Peace Through Strength, you have Secretary Hegseth, the new Secretary of War, focused on bringing those generals and admirals back and saying clear-cut, this is how it's going to be, or you can find another job. What do you think about this warrior ethos and the fact that everyone in the military now has to complete 2 PT trainings every single year?
Yeah, I think the military is the very last place that we should be implementing DEI. I mean, it already is bad enough as it is, but in the military, it can quite literally cost lives. And I think it disincentivizes people to serve their country and participate and sign up if they think that the person next to them quite literally can't have their back, quite literally can't carry them, quite literally can't keep up with them and keep them safe. It's not just about being on the offense. It's also about making sure that they operate as a brotherhood, a strong brotherhood, and that they keep to the same standards. I can only imagine enemy countries of the US, China, North Korea, using videos of some of our past DEI hires, like transgender people in the military, and using those videos to show their people, hey, look at what we're about versus look at how the West is falling. I think that that is just great propaganda for other countries to use against us. And it's also a reason why, especially under the Biden administration or the AutoPen administration, so many countries did not respect the US and just did whatever it is that they wanted because they saw us as weak. So these standards are not about discrimination. It's not about taking away opportunities from females, from women. It's about keeping our country safe, which is more important.
And we see it with the proof is in the pudding with the numbers increasing with recruits and a lot of male recruits, which is good because I feel that regardless of whatever man is in his life, wherever they're at, whether it's, singlehood marriage or, choosing clergy, anywhere in between that, they should always be ready to take on the wolves. And it's just true masculinity coming back into the military. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed as well when the vice president this week with Karoline Leavitt at the White House for the press briefing was asked about the beardo comment from the Secretary of War. And he said, well, the beautiful thing about where I'm at, I'm the vice president. I could do what I want. But when I was a Marine, I had to shave. So a lot of common sense coming across from this administration, clearly. Are you excited about prescription drug costs? I was a bit surprised that Pfizer seems to want to team up with the administration. I mean, an organization that at times had its odds with President Trump, but they all of a sudden want to produce here in America. They want to bring down, scale back those cost of drugs and reform healthcare, given President Trump's ability to sign those executive orders of right to try and also the favored nations status. So how will that change somewhere like your free sunshine state of Florida? I know that it's been a big deal with healthcare costs and also the cost of prescriptions.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think that these companies should be putting America first as we are their number one consumers, their number one clients. And it's crazy that for such a long time, they've been ripping us off while giving better benefits, better prices to countries abroad. I think the Trump administration has the best intentions behind this. I think that Trump is somebody who just looks at injustices and gets personally offended and just starts asking around immediately, like, why are things this way? And we need to change that quickly. So I think that is his intention behind this. However, I personally am always going to be distrustful of these pharmaceutical companies. I'm always going to start thinking, okay, what is their angle, right? What do they get to gain from this, or are they in compliance simply because of the threats that President Trump has made in making them pay higher costs or allowing more right to try medications? So I think that I have the best hopes for this, just like I am equally as skeptical as to where these pharmaceutical companies actually follow through. So I think the key here is keeping them under a watch, like under a microscope, to make sure that what they're doing is actually serving the American people's interests.
Trust but verify, something that we learned from years ago under President Reagan. And your free sunshine state of Florida, really in the news this week with $60 million of research going into cancer to find out how we can combat that, and some new technologies. And to your point, a lot of it going against big pharma, because it's amazing how going to the gym, a healthy diet, perhaps being involved in a church or a Bible believing community can mean so much. Getting rid of that stress as much as you can actually help fight cancer. And then also a presidential library coming to Miami. That will be the Presidential Library and Museum of President Donald Trump. So Florida in the news a lot. Really, it's showcasing why it's the best place to live in America.
Truly. Somebody who lives in Miami, I have definitely seen a lot of people appreciate my state and my city very much so in these last few years. I guess that's the balance to living in such a great state and such a great place, is that everybody wants to come here, and the price to pay is a lot higher traffic, definitely. But we do have the best policies nationwide. Another important law that passed recently was eliminating the vaccine mandate requirements for a lot of schools in the state. That was also recently removed. So we're really giving parents back and children back their own autonomy, their own personal bodily freedom. And so we're setting the standard. And I think that following, hopefully, in these next midterm elections, a lot more places are wanting to make the U.S. Like Florida.
And speaking of the midterm elections, anything you can share from Turning Point Action as it prepares for perhaps the biggest midterms in modern American history, and the fact that it looks like there will be a Republican National Convention for the midterms, something so great for organizing. I think that's common sense and actually playing on the offensive, something we don't see from Republicans often with regards to this Chuck Schumer shutdown that might see a new light at the end of the tunnel, because we actually have legislators now who are growing a backbone for once.
Yes, but I think this shutdown is another great thing for optics for Republicans, because so many average American citizens are suffering as a result of this shutdown. And the reason for it is quite simply Democrats wanting to cater to the needs of non-US citizens and non-legal US residents. It truly shows where their priorities lie and to where their alliances and their allegiances lie. I think it's egregious, absolutely egregious, that we're even having this battle, this discussion, this shutdown over catering to foreign invaders, basically, over our own people. I hope a lot of people in the center and a lot more Democrats, currently registered Democrats, see that and then apply what they think in the upcoming elections. Turning Point Action, of course, we're working around the clock to capitalize on this and to just never lose momentum. There's some really big upcoming races next year. Obviously, a huge one is that governor's race in Arizona. There is a Chase the Vote program that is currently underway there, where we are hiring and training ballot chasers so that we can go after those absentee ballots at home. We have the numbers to win. Unfortunately, a lot of Republicans stay home or don't turn in their ballot when it comes to these midterm elections. So that's what we're geared up to do, to make sure that our people turn out. It's not about winning a battle of hearts and minds anymore. I think the lines have been truly drawn in the sand about where people stand. And so it's just a matter of reminding our people to go vote. And so we are putting in a ton of resources to make sure that there is an infrastructure that is permanent on the ground in battleground states, and that we are constantly recruiting and training people in these states so that when it is go time, when early voting starts, that we have people out there going door to door, telling their friends, their neighbors, hey, have you turned in your ballot? Can I drive you to go drop it off? Doing things the legal way, of course, because ballot harvesting is illegal. Wink to Democrats. And making sure that people know that at home, even if you're not in a battleground state, you can do as much as you can yourself. If you download the Turning Point Action app by going to tpaction.com/app, you can download the app on your phone and it will tell you who your closest Republican neighbors are. So everybody has a call to action. It's what Charlie would have wanted. You can find out find your community, find your tribe, and make sure that everybody stays active in non-presidential election years. So again, hope everybody does that. Go to tpaction.com/app, download the app, find out where the Republicans in your neighborhood are, and start introducing yourself right now in an organic way, as a friend, as a neighbor, so that down the line, we can call upon these people to go in and go vote and stay civically involved.
Indeed, it is for community and God and country and family. Correct. That's what it's all about, especially for Charlie Kirk, who laid that groundwork. Our dear friend, may he watch over us as we continue to fight for freedom and common sense across the country. And thank you, Drianna Sixto, Turning Point Action spokesperson. Come back again and see us at Right Side Broadcasting Network very soon.
Absolutely, will do. Thank you.
Always a pleasure to have Drianna Sixto from Turning Point Action with us here on the right side of history. Thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN for sponsoring us here at the network. 6-piece towel sets, they're back in stock. Regularly $70. Think about that. Big 70 down to under 40, $39.98, a very limited quantity. So call today. Don't delay. It's 800-836-7566. mypillow.com/RSBN. Look at all the colors. And I'm telling you, I've had a couple of these towels. They get you dry really fast, so they actually do their job, unlike others. So support Mike Lindell at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Shop now at mypillow.com/RSBN with code RSBN. He's the purveyor of free speech, defender of election integrity, and heck, he might even be next governor of Minnesota. We'd love for that announcement right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thank you to Mike Lindell. mypillow.com/RSBN for over 2,000 items that will help you sleep better, make your morning better. I have several of them myself. mypillow.com/RSBN. If you like what you see with your go-to live desk that was your Rally Network, and heck, we're excited to see what might happen in 2026 with a Republican National Convention coming around the corner, with President Trump and Vice President Vance fighting the good fight. Support us right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network so we can bring you that unbridled access to your favorite president and vice president and the 119th Congress. rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801, rsbnetwork.com/donate. Texting RSBN to 801-801 gets that done. We also have an address for check or money order, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6. That's Box 344 in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for supporting us on the right side of history. And monetary gold, it's wealth, it's security, it's preservation. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide today. Call today, don't delay. Learn how you can get rid of those IRA fees permanently and for life. 888-617-7994, RSBN4thegold.com. Robert Kiyosaki telling us that 2 banks failed this year alone. So where does that leave you with your retirement, your pensions, everything you worked hard for? So important nowadays to consider how to pass on that generational wealth or simply save up to buy that very first home, that very first property, which so many can relate to because the viewers here, the network as well, there's something special about having those grass roots and the home really becoming, or a house becoming a home in so many different ways. So call immediately to discover how you can eliminate those IRA fees. 888-617-7994, RSBN4thegold.com. Precious commodities, gold and silver, they have been the answer to so many problems over the course over 5,000 years of human history. RSBN4thegold.com. At 12:19 Eastern, we are breaking down Chuck Schumer's shutdown and House Democrats that continually seem to throw shade towards an administration that is focused on making America safe again, making America wealthy again, and making America great again with a team of people that are Republicans and were Democrats, former Democrats, including President Trump, to Tulsi Gabbard, to Robert F. Kennedy, who was thrown out of his party. And I think of all the big battles. Think back to the 2016 Republican primary between Secretary Marco Rubio, who was a senator at the time, then private citizen President Donald Trump, and now they've come together to make America great again. How about Doug Collins or Kelly Loeffler in the battle of the Peach State of Georgia for that Senate seat? Coming together peacefully and patriotically to make America great again. So why can't these Democrats get on board with serving the American people? Because they seem more concerned about illegal alien funding of health care rather than taking care of the health care of rural hospitals throughout the United States. It's actually truly shameful when you think about it. But President Trump continues to fight the good fight while putting smiles on our face with cut number 3, Mr. Producer, as he continues to troll the Democrats. Happy Halloween a few days early. But really, there are simple solutions to the plan. If we play cut number 5, Mr. Producer, President Trump and the administration focused on sitting down with Senate and House leadership on both sides of the aisles. And if we just accept the clean CR from the House to keep this open for another 7 weeks, if you heard from the comments earlier in this broadcast to House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune, they are focused on just that.
But our country can't handle people that come into our country illegally.
What?
And they want to give them full health care benefits.
I've never heard anything like that before. That is so weird.
They want to open the wall again. Can you believe it? I can't even believe it.
What's that? Say that again?
They want to open the wall.
What?
They haven't taken away boys playing in women's sports. They haven't done that. Men playing in women's sports.
What?
It's like they don't change. They lost an election in a landslide, and they don't change.
What is going on?
Vice President J.D. Vance addressing just this very issue at a press briefing earlier in the week with superstar Karoline Leavitt, as we are awaiting yet another press briefing at 1 o'clock in the midst of this Chuck Schumer shutdown of the federal government. But in case you missed it, here are some of the comments from the vice president.
So let me make one final point. I think a lot of Americans are asking themselves, why did this happen? Why did the Democrats shut down the government despite, as Karoline said, voting on the exact same piece of legislation 6 months ago? And there are a lot of different spins that we can put on it, a lot of different answers that we could give, all of them true. One answer I already gave is that they want to give health care benefits to illegal aliens. That is true. They gave us legislative text that would have undone us cutting off health care benefits for illegal aliens. That's one of the things that they asked for. But the reality here, and let's be honest about the politics, is that Chuck Schumer is terrified she's going to get a primary challenge from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The reason why the American people's government is shut down is because Chuck Schumer is listening to the far-left radicals in his own party because he's terrified of a primary challenge. So I'd invite Chuck Schumer to join the moderate Democrats and 52 Senate Republicans, do the right thing, open up the people's government, and then let's fix health care policy for the American people.
And the proof is in the pudding with Cut 7, Mr. Producer. The CBO has scored this, and what this will cost the American people, $400 million a day. Why would Democrats want to shut down the government when it harms the people most vulnerable, either on public aid or those in uniform? House Speaker Mike Johnson spoke on this. Is his very own district of Louisiana, many veterans, several military bases, and he knows of a family with someone deployed right now. They won't be able to afford groceries, let alone gasoline. There's a serious matter to this. And if Democrats truly care about the American people, we should grow up, come to the table, and simply pass the CR through the United States Senate. Elizabeth Warren spoke on this. Chuck Schumer spoke on this back in 2012 and 2013. That's never smart to shut down the government for these essential services. And that's why cut number 4, Trump's approval rating with African Americans is truly through the roof, more than ever before. Just shy of 57% overall, according to Rasmussen, but political polls stating that Trump is or has a 54% approval rating with black Americans. And there's a reason for that, because of opportunity zones, because he doesn't pander and treat people differently or just simply come around a neighborhood asking for a vote when election time comes around. He spoke truth to power dating back to 1987, and that both Republicans and Democrats and the neoliberal and the neocon philosophies have failed the American people because they were too busy being at champagne galas with once Vice Premier Xi Jinping and then the auto pen senator from Delaware, together with then President Bill Clinton in 1999, saying, oh, an open China would be good for America. No, that was not the case. Chinese playing the long game, and those people decided to bankroll Beijing and bankrupt Detroit. But that's all changed now. That's why the UAW has come behind President Trump, celebrating with him at the end of April. We were there for that, 100 days into office. Well, stick with us here as Karoline Leavitt will hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock on the ever-growing Senator Chuck Schumer shutdown. But thank you to Kalshi.com/RSBN for all of your support here at the right side of history. Who will win that Nobel Peace Prize? 7 wars solved in 7 months. Donald Trump leading the way on that. Will President Zelensky meet with President Putin before January? Will it be bilateral, perhaps trilateral, as both leaders requesting President Trump's presence right there at the summit? Will it take place in Moscow, Russia, or Kiev, Ukraine? Scan the QR code there and trade on literally anything. It's those kind of questions that come at you fast. And also those questions like October baseball. It's the division series coming up after the wild card this weekend. Who will win that? Will the LA Dodgers be able to defend their championship? Something hard to do, as we saw the Florida Panthers, one of President Trump's favorite teams in the NHL, defend the Stanley Cup back-to-back. President Trump loves sports. He loves Kalshi, and they are on your side. So scan that QR code there. Trade on anything. Kalshi.com/RSBN. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN as well. Did you know that $60 million in funding opening up in the free sunshine state of Florida? If there already wasn't a good reason to relocate to sunny Florida, it's now 25% off ivermectin and mebendazole. That's where this online pharmacy leading the way for you comes right back in, because they have these life-saving medications that other pharmacies, due to Big Pharma, will not prescribe. And why is that? Because Big Pharma doesn't make money from the generics. But it's not only ivermectin and mebendazole going for 25% off now. You can get code RSBN10, RSBN10 for 10% off your entire order of NAD Plus to methylene blue, emergency medical kits and antibiotics, antivirals, also Tamiflu. So important this season with cold and flu and viruses going around, including a new strain of COVID. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. It's no red tape. It's no bureaucracy. Simply a pharmaceutical note. Doctors who care about you and yours. And you can schedule that with them right over the phone or by that great website, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Scan the QR code there, as ivermectin and mebendazole now 25% off. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history, and get that additional 10% off. In the meantime, we're looking live towards Pebble Beach, right outside of the West Wing at the White House. It's a glorious day in the federal city. It is phenomenal as well here, weather-wise, in Auburn, Alabama, the loveliest village on the plains. Let's take a quick commercial break for sponsors, Mr. Producer, and we'll be right back with you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Yeah, she's about
your
5
trusted
minutes
conservative
away.
news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD Plus, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. As we dive into the Chuck Schumer shutdown, Karoline Leavitt will hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock Eastern. I'm Robert McNeely. It's always a joy to be with you on the live desk, your go-to live desk since January, when President Trump and Vice President Vance and the 119th Congress all sworn into office for this term. An exciting time to see a golden era of America, albeit it's been difficult days of far-left violence and insane rhetoric. In fact, I had to call out someone from my neck of the woods, the DuPage County chairwoman, again, calling Republicans Nazis, Hitler, fascist. She did so on the day of Charlie Kirk's memorial on September 21st. And I don't encourage anyone to be keyboard warriors by any means, because it's rather a waste of time and it does drain your energy. Instead, try to debate in the public forum, just as the Apostle Paul did, just as Charlie Kirk did. At the same time, speak truth to power, be unafraid. As Bible-believing Christians, we are meant to go out into the arena and correct error. Charlie talked about this often, and every day I've been given an extra bolster in what I am fortunate enough to do, because as one of my media colleagues said after the tragedy of last month, if anyone has the utmost privilege to speak behind a microphone and or be involved in this grand movement in American politics, they likely owe it to the late, great Charlie Kirk. And at fear of being repeated on countless times, I'm one of those blessed individuals. So I'm very grateful to you, the viewers here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, as joining us today, the dashing, the daring Katie Zachariah, attorney, political strategist from the Golden State of California. Katie, it's always wonderful to have you on the show to dive into what's a big week of news here at the network and around our grand republic. What do you think about this peace term between America, Israel, and Gaza? Do you think Hamas will actually buy into this and finally lay down their arms?
Well, what President Trump did with Iran and what he did in his first term, we have to go back to his first term where he sanctioned Iran and then therefore bankrupt Hamas and Hezbollah. And then Joe Biden released those sanctions. Those terrorist groups were re-energized and refinanced, and then war raged again. So President Trump is looking at this as a multifaceted approach. He first neutralized Iran, and we are so grateful for our commander-in-chief for having the bravery to do this, and it's historic what he did. And then that in turn, and the pressure on China with their purchase of Iranian oil, right? You have to look at who is funding Iran, how are they getting their money, and then who are they then funding, and how is the terrorism kind of proliferating through the Middle East? So President Trump taking out Iran and putting pressure on China with the oil deals between China and Iran, and then therefore now trying to bring peace to the Middle East between Israel, Gaza. I think it is a first step. I think President Trump, whether Hamas wants to or not, I think Hamas is going to find themselves again bankrupt, again cashless, and without financing, unless other countries want to fund terrorism, which I think many of these countries are actually pretty fearful of President Trump. Thank God we have a president that the world fears and respects again. And so this is the first step. Whether it sticks the first time around, he has an amazing envoy with Steve Witkoff doing the hard, groundbreaking work that has not been done in the past. President Trump, again, previous term, Abraham Accords, very successful. So I think we're going to start seeing some massive movement over the next 6 months. And hopefully it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and then continued progress.
Russia and Ukraine, definitely a piece of this puzzle as well. Do you think we can trust Vladimir Putin? Or maybe a better question is, can we negotiate in good faith? Because that Anchorage, Alaska peace summit from August 15th, huge strides for peace. And then the European leaders coming to the White House the following Monday. But now roughly 5 to 6 weeks after that, you see an individual who has thrown more drones and missiles towards Kiev, and now NATO actually purchasing our Tomahawks. And in turn, I thought it was rather trite that Vladimir Putin, comparing the Charlie Kirk situation, as horrible as that was, to you better not throw Tomahawks at me because I will strike back. It rather seems hypocritical, but how does President Trump get around dealing with someone who is extraordinarily unpredictable?
Look, President Trump is similar with what he's done with Iran, what he did with Russia in his first term. He had sanctioned Nord Stream 2, the oil pipeline, and that was very successful, very, very successful to, again, squeeze the finances. Who is funding, who is purchasing the oil, and how are they enriching a country that can then wage war on other countries, right? And that was Russia. So with and then Joe Biden rescinded those sanctions on Nord Stream 2. Europe continued purchasing oil, Germany particularly, from Russia, oil and gas. And so what he's doing right now is his speech at the UN, a very historic, one of his best speeches, in my opinion, that he's ever given in both terms of his presidency, all of his campaign speeches, mostly because it was in a room full of people that needed to hear the honest truth. And what he talked about in that speech was that Europe is continuing to fund Russia by purchasing oil and gas from Russia. So if you want these wars to end, actually the pressure is on you to start participating in, maybe not using green new energy and finding nuclear energy within your own country, and also not purchasing it from Russia. And so what he has this multilateral approach. There's also, it was clear that he met with Zelensky, and I've seen conversations about Zelensky potentially stepping down when the war ends. I know that that's on the table, maybe taking the Donbass region for Russia and ending the war and making a deal that is suitable for everyone. Look, I also think Zelensky owes the rare earth minerals to the United States. I haven't seen some traction on that. President Trump is probably going to ensure that it's a fair deal, and also that Europe does its part, because it is incumbent upon them to put pressure on Russia and stop relying on the United States to make all the deals. He listed these 7 conflicts that he's dealt with since he became president. And my question is, where was the UN at every single conflict? All these conflicts that rose up during Joe Biden, where was the UN? Nowhere to be found. President Trump is single-handedly dealing with these conflicts while the UN sits back, Europe sits back, and lets him. So it's high time that these other countries step in and participate in the deal-making and the peace brokering.
Extraordinary points, Katie. So true, because we saw that escalator fail, to the teleprompter fail, to the mic being turned down just a bit. The First Lady could not hear her own husband up there. But President Trump speaking to defending sovereignty, it was very much like his 2019 address to the United Nations about putting your citizens first. It was the Trump doctrine, rather than listening to the siren sound of globalism. And in turn, it means we must have a strong military focused on that warrior ethos. President Trump and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth calling back those generals and admirals into the same room at Marine Base Quantico to make that very clear to them. What are some of your thoughts on the military readiness? And it seems as if we're going back to not only common sense, but the way we used to do things so that our military can be its highest lethality and being ready to go in case, God forbid, something terrible happens in the world.
President Trump said it over and over right in the middle of his speech. Merit-based. The military will be merit-based. And this is not a term that is very controversial. President Trump understands that if you are going to join the military, it will be on merit. And Pete Hegseth illuminated, if you're a female in the military, you must be able to pull the same weight as your male counterpart. And that is not a matter of, this isn't inclusive. This is a matter of safety. If my husband or my son is out on the line and he needs to get pulled out of a difficult situation, and a female cannot pull, a 200-pound man out, that is not national security. That is not in the best interest of our military. So I love the uniform standard across the board. Look, you have to pass these physical fitness tests. He called the generals, right? This isn't controversial. Again, I lived in Beijing for 3 years. I saw the Tiananmen military parade. China's military is efficient, it is clean, it is precise, it is large, and it is intimidating. And everyone is same size, same standard, same uniform, same look. And that is what the military needs to be. And Pete Hegseth is re-emerging as we will be strong again. The DEI policies broke our military and really broke the morale of the military, that it is not okay. It is not cool to be strong. We're going to have EV tanks that we have to charge. These types of policies only enable adversaries to grow stronger. Russia, China, Iran, Venezuela, right? These countries grow bigger when you don't have a military that the world fears. And honestly, peace, as Reagan had put it and Winston Churchill had put it, peace can only come through true strength. And strength, what President Trump is bringing is not starting wars around the world. Peace will come through strength because we have a great military, because people will fear us. And he illuminated up two other things that I think have largely gone, unnoticed in the mainstream media, which is his real desire and his mission to have the Golden Dome over the United States, which is absolutely going to, for generations, protect our country. It is exactly what needs to happen, what should have happened. It's what Reagan had dreamed of and didn't accomplish. And now we have the ability to do it, and President Trump will get that done. The other one is the F-47. I absolutely love fighter jets. It is my love and passion to go to these air shows. We have a great one coming up this weekend in Huntington Beach. But to see the magnificence of our military and the precision, that is really encapsulated in the F-18, F-22, F-35 that President Trump did in his last term, and now the F-47, which I think is a great name for it. But you have a president and a commander-in-chief with vision, and that is what we need, and strength, and the world will fear us again. But fear is a healthy thing because it will stop conflicts and it will create, again, peace, because we are the world's CEO and there has to be a boss. And when there's peace, it'll generally be peace around the world. So it's my opinion on that.
And excellent opinions. And I think you're spitting truths and facts, Katie, simply because the Chinese Navy has stated by 2027 that they'll be the largest in the world. And they're trying to influence the Trump White House. I think they'll fail at this to change course on Taiwan. So really it's Taiwan and then in turn the U.S. Pacific Fleet and where you live, that West Coast, that is in imminent danger of the Chinese threat. But this administration very clear-eyed on this, unlike the last administration under the auto pen. Do you see any hope in the reduction of pharmaceutical prices with the announcements this week and the partnership between HHS and also with Pfizer? Is there any concern given that Pfizer they really have not put the American people first in the past, especially when it was during the pandemic. But if they had maybe a change of heart and mind because of the good leadership of Secretary Kennedy and doctors like Marty McCary and Mehmet Oz?
Well, RFK Jr., Secretary Kennedy, is going to, I think, really bring out a lot of the disinformation that we experienced during the pandemic. And because Pfizer is interested in continuing on their business as a pharmaceutical company, I think they will work hand in hand with the secretary to bring transparency and to also lower the cost. As President Trump has said, we need to lower the costs on these drugs in the United States. The truth is around the world, they are much cheaper. There is a really large chasm that has been created on what we as Americans pay for these drugs and what other people in the world pay for them. And so I think to level the playing field and make it equal for the United States citizens to purchase drugs at a lower price, and also work with insurance companies to bring down the rates and make a deal with these pharmaceutical companies, because I know the two go hand in hand. I do think that there has to be some transparency on the Pfizer vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, and the Moderna vaccine, because there is a long studies, one just came out in the Daily Mail, where there's a large increase in cancer rates a year after the COVID vaccines were given. And so this will all come to the surface. And I think because of that, Pfizer will be willing to bring down costs and work with the secretary and the president.
Now, any great news, Katie, coming from the Golden State of California? We know your governor trying to act like President Trump, which is all fun and jest for us politicos who love this stuff, whether it's the Daily News to history. But he seems to be a better podcast host than he is a CEO of one of America's largest and most gorgeous states. We have people like Steve Hilton stepping up to take on this battle in 2026. What are some hopes for the Golden State maybe going red in the future?
Well, Look, Gavin Newsom, we're going to start right at the top here with the government shutdown on a very relevant topic. Why are we having an impasse on the government shutdown? Well, it's between the radical left and then the Chuck Schumer wing of the party. This is not a Republican and Democrat issue. However, what we have to talk about is the health care for illegal immigrants. And California is is the only state in the nation that has given and decided to give out free health care to every illegal immigrant that crossed the border during Joe Biden's open border policy years. And guess what happened? He estimated this would cost maybe 8 or 9 billion. It cost us 22 billion in 2 years as California. He bankrupted our Medi-Cal system. So what that means, Medi-Cal is a health insurance program similar to Medicaid for those people in California, citizens that don't have enough for insurance. It's a way to kind of compensate and make up for the costs. It bankrupted our system, as he was warned it would, and he asked the federal government for a $4 billion bailout for Medi-Cal. So if we look at California as this case study for what happens when you decide that you want to give free healthcare to illegal immigrants, what Gavin Newsom ended up doing just this last May is walking back the policy, because guess what? It didn't work. And all of the California citizens who want to go to a regular hospital and use their regular insurance or pay cash all suffered because the hospital systems and doctors are overwhelmed with the intake of illegal immigrants that the California taxpayer is paying for. So the impasse in the House, this is a non-negotiable. The Republicans cannot kowtow. The Republicans cannot even give an inch on healthcare for illegal immigrants, because who will it cost? Well, it'll cost how are they going to defer the $200 billion, estimated $200 billion for healthcare for illegal immigrants? Where are they going to get that money? It's going to go to our debt, and it's going to be on the backs of our children and their children in the great scheme of the trillions of debt that we're already in. So what's good in California? That was your question, and I'll get to it. But Gavin Newsom only continues to show all of the policies that don't work. And what we're seeing here in California is this resurgence of new voter registration. Republicans are just sweeping the map. As we clean up the voter rolls and kick out a lot of those people who are, not living in the state anymore, didn't have a valid driver's license, address, home, and residence, and also those people who were dead, and those people who are illegal, as Gavin Newsom said, they're not voting, which we know they are. And we're cleaning up these voter rolls, and we're registering Republican voters, conservative voters at a breakneck speed. What I hope and what I know is the only way, both for California and any other state that does not allow voter ID, we have a voter ID ballot initiative that is absolutely critical to get on in 26. Assemblyman Carl DeMaio is just working day and night for this. We are almost there. It takes money and signatures. But if we get, it's an 80-20 issue in California. That means 80% of the voters, if it's on the ballot, will support voter ID. And so if we can get this over the finish line, California, in my mind, and I'm just going to say it, California would be a red state if we regulated who went to the polls.
Katie Zachariah, attorney, political strategist. She's crushing it out of the park, and it's October baseball for the division series right around the corner. But Katie always hitting home runs throughout the season, which for us politicos, again, every day is the Super Bowl with breaking news. So we look forward to seeing you again, Katie, on the right side of history. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And stick with us here, because moments from now, we have the superstar Karoline Leavitt about to give a press briefing at the White House there in the James S. Brady briefing room. As Katie aptly pointed out, we are in the era of the Chuck Schumer shutdown. This is the battle between AOC and a potential primary against her fellow New Yorker in the United States Senate primary to upcoming in roughly 2028. So we watch all of that closely as we thank angelpaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us here on the right side of history. The miracle cream that is infused with vitamin B. It is also non-GMO, no chemicals. You have great options this time of year as the fall harvest is upon us. But that means COVID, flu, just the general cold that comes about. So how do you protect yourself? The orange option filled with vitamin C, again, non-GMO, no chemicals, no red dyes, no blue dyes, no 1, 2, 3 color, this, that, or the other, just good things that your skin can absorb from angelpaste.com. They're Christian-owned, and they're based in Spring, Texas, off of the Gulf of America. That's in the Houston Metroplex. So they know a thing or two about producing products that protect your skin during all seasons, including a facial spray for guys and gals that can help you paint the town red. Whether it's that first date to the 50th anniversary celebration, angelpaste.com is there for you. So experience the miracle today as covepure.com/RSBN. Do you remember that Flint, Michigan crisis with the lead poisoning in the water? That was a disgusting failure of Democrat leadership. But it's happening still in cities throughout the United States of America. Lead and heavy metals are still showing up in city counts because you have pipes that are older than your grandparents. And it's something that's so terrible to think about if your children are drinking out of the tap water and what's flowing through them is not what you want your kids drinking. So that's why Cove Pure Water Purifier is one of the best investments you can make with $200 off now. Drink Pure, Live Pure. Scan that QR code there now. You can see the lovely model in the video with a machine that's not bigger than your coffee maker at home. It can sit right there at the kitchen counter or perhaps in the den, and protecting those most precious, our children. Protect what matters most. This causes brain damage, cancer, and long-term health issues if you're drinking out of the tap water with lead and all these other chemicals. The EPA itself admits that millions of Americans are still exposed to the lead in the tap water. So let's focus on getting a reverse osmosis system with the clear wave technology, taking out 99.9% of contaminants. covepure.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. As we are roughly 5 minutes away from Karoline Leavitt, we celebrate Perplexity, the newest sponsor here at the right side of history. It's Comet. It's a new AI-powered browser from Perplexity. So unlock 1 month free of Rumble Premium when you sign up for Comet. Browse at the speed of thought with Comet. So think about a web browser now that is actually your personal assistant, whether it's searching, typing, scheduling meetings and dinners. All of that can be done through pplx.ai/RSBN. So I have a business meeting. It's coming up on Wednesday, say next week. It's a hypothetical. I'm not going to Austin, Texas, although it's one of my favorite liberal cities out there, and they have some great Tex-Mex. So I want to go and enjoy that with some of my colleagues. Well, I can search and browse all through Comet, and what would maybe take 20 minutes of work becomes about 2 or less, because they'll type it in for me. They'll search for it. I'll tell them simply, schedule this for 7:30 in Austin, Texas. We want the best Tex-Mex that's out there, and send that email notification over to Jack to let him know. Okay, it's on the books. Comet will take care of it for you. So number 1 on the list for Perplexity's Comet is something very simple. Comet doesn't just give answers. It actually gets things done for you. Number 2, it's a web browser. So Comet can use these accounts that already are logged in to take action on the process. And 3, Comet takes actions just like a human would online. Click, type, scroll, fill out forms just like you would. Save time and mental clarity with all this. So let me ask you something. How much time have you saved by browsing online? Fear not. With Perplexity's Comet, visit pplx.ai/RSBN. Thank you to our newest sponsor here at the right side of history. As we await the superstar, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, moments away from now, to hold a press briefing in the unprecedented shutdown by the Palestinian senator himself, Chuck Schumer, someone who's been in office for far too long. He's been a United States senator since 1999. He's been in Congress since 1981 as a congressman. That's much longer than before my very own birth date. Term limits. Can I hear that from the audience? We need those, do we not? Because it's remarkable how our states, our legislators have been able to find some consensus, both Republicans and Democrats, not only to save on state debt, but also to create some form of term limits. And it usually comes internal with that, unless you're New York, Illinois, or California. 3 of those states that spend the most on their state legislators. I want to say that New York State itself, so Kathy Hochul responsible along with their government, their Democrat government, giving out no names on state licenses, including driver's license and CDLs. Well, that's quite egregious. $142,000 on average. Yes, that's the salary of a state legislator in the New York State Assembly. Illinois itself, you start at $67,000 for a part-time job. Out in California, I have to double check those stats, but I'm sure it's a lot. New Jersey, expensive as well. And what does that do in turn? Well, they start going bankrupt because of those pensions and because of the high salaries for part-time workers. Whereas in the great peach state of Georgia, I think you're roughly at that $27,000 mark for a part-time legislature. So that's why people end up not only voting at the voting booth or sending in their mail-in ballots, they vote with their feet, and they move to red states where there's more common sense and there's more affordability. But who am I other than your humble host here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as we approach the 1 o'clock Eastern hour? Karoline Leavitt to be out in moments. Let's take a quick commercial break for sponsors. Stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network as we await Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing this afternoon. And we know that across the country, the radical left's political stunt is inflicting harm and pain across the country. Now, Democrats' shutdown hurts families, veterans, workers across America. And according to the White House, Democrats' reckless push to hold the government hostage over free health care for illegal aliens has forced crippling shutdowns, making essential workers and service members go unpaid, pushing vital programs like WIC to the brink and leaving key services unfunded in that process. So the VA will stop transition program assistance and career counseling, close the GI Bill and national cemetery hotlines, and shut down benefits in regional offices. This coming from Arizona's KVOA-TV. Remaining open this year will be the park, roads, and trails generally, but without regular maintenance. So special events requiring permits will be halted and no new permits will be issued. So parks with insufficient funds will cease operations, suspending all non-essential work there out in Arizona as the White House showcases nationwide support for the clean continuing resolution. You saw that at the top of the hour with House Speaker Mike Johnson, also the Senate Majority Leader John Thune, speaking to this very topic. Today, as part of the Democrat shutdown from Chuck Schumer, the White House introduced an interactive online map featuring letters from state legislators and community leaders across the country urging swift resolutions to pass this CR, from Republicans demanding it across the country to hold the government hostage over free health care for illegal aliens. Truly immoral on the part of the Democrats, whether it be the AOC wing to the Palestinian wing of Chuck Schumer. Thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN for sponsoring us here at the network. 25% off ivermectin and mebendazole with our ongoing code RSBN10 for 10% off as your whole order. So dive into that now, because $60 million of investments going to the free sunshine state of Florida. We had Katie Zachariah on from California highlighting the bankrupt Golden State because of giving taxpayer money to illegal aliens. They're doing the opposite in Florida. In fact, going into the research that can save lives for residents in that fair state. Ivermectin, mebendazole, now 25% off. Get an extra 10% off with code RSBN10. Scan the QR code there now. No red tape, no bureaucracy, just life-saving medications from Tamiflu to ivermectin, mebendazole, as I mentioned, also NAD plus to methylene blue, and 200 essential medications, including emergency medical kits that can take care of you in cold and flu COVID season as this October brings. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history, as we also thank mypillow.com/RSBN. The 6-piece towel sets back in stock. They go for $70 on a regular basis, down under $40, $39.98. MyPillow.com/RSBN. Call today. Don't delay. It's 800-836-7566. Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network with over 2,000 products in stock now to make your evenings and mornings even better. Support Mike Lindell with MyPillow.com/RSBN. Thank you to Mr. Mike, a dear friend of ours, who just might be the next governor of Minnesota, telling our very own Matthew Alvarez a couple weeks ago on this network, I'm thinking about doing it. We'll see if we get that announcement here on the right side of history. Thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN at 1:05 Eastern, 9:05 on the Golden Coast. We are awaiting the superstar Karoline Leavitt to speak on these very topics. The government shutdown taking place thanks to the Democrats and their political games, a leadership failure on the part of the Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. We'll see if that changes the tune. That last vote of a 55-45 Democrat shutdown, they led a filibuster against this after the clean CR passed the House to keep the government open for another 7 weeks. So we'll take you right there to the James S. Brady briefing room moments from now. Also breaking news this week, the peace proposal from the American and Israeli governments in a joint way, a bilateral meeting between the president and the prime minister. Also a trilateral call with the prime minister of Qatar, speaking on that very issue of Israel striking there to eliminate Hamas leadership and terrorists, but in turn, sadly, and an apology from Bibi Netanyahu, striking a Qatari service member. So Qatar has been in the crosshairs of Iran and Israel since this very hot war has been happening over the course of the last 2 years, dating back to October 7th, a date which will truly live in infamy, when innocent people were attacked by Hamas terrorists and then joined in the hatred by Hezbollah and also Houthi rebels who have been shut down in the Persian Gulf region, who were trying to disrupt manufacturing and also trade routes by ships of countless nations, including the United States. But thanks be to God, we have an administration that does not tolerate that kind of behavior, as the last one in the Autopen era did. Also, potential pharmaceutical prices going down in a partnership between Pfizer and the Health and Human Services, with Secretary Kennedy leading that charge along with Drs. McCary and Mehmet Oz in their specific roles within the federal government. As President Trump has said, they tend to mock you or make fun of you because you've had a successful television show. But look at these gentlemen and their careers in business and throughout medical practices. They know a thing or two about professional medicine, and where Big Pharma has truly led the world in the wrong direction and favored nation status as well as the right to try. President Trump championing those executive orders, followed by legislation in the first and second terms. So we'll watch that story closely as we think monetary gold, its wealth, its security, its preservation. Protect what matters most. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide with number 45 and 47 on that front cover. Call today. Don't delay. Learn how you can eliminate your annual IRA fees permanently. 888-617-7994. That's 888-617-7994. RSBN4thegold.com. That's RSBN4thegold.com. Call immediately to discover how you can eliminate those IRA fees permanently, because Robert Kiyosaki, a friend of President Trump, has written extensively on this, dating back many years, including Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what the rich teach their children rather than the middle or poor classes about wealth and money, security, preservation, gold and silver, the hot commodities that have stood the test of time for 5,000 years of human history. RSBN4thegold.com. Monetary gold, the best in the business. Grab that complimentary presidential gold guide today. Whether it's generational wealth and you want to pass it down to your kids and grandkids, or you're simply just trying to purchase that very first home, this is the organization that can help you do just that. At roughly 10 minutes past the hour, RSBNforthegold.com. Thank you, Monetary Gold. Karoline Leavitt, we will hold a press briefing in the James S. Brady briefing room there live today at the White House in the West Wing, as we are covering all of this unbridled access to your 47th presidential administration, the 50th vice president, the 119th Congress, on your go-to live desk, where you can find hope and you can find biblical practices. You can hear actually anchors, broadcast journalists, and opinion columnists talking about just that, what makes America great, what makes this grand constitutional republic nearly 250 years young, what it is today because of our history, because of getting involved in politics, something Christians should be instructed to do to go and correct the errors in society. We all fall short of the glory of God. And Charlie Kirk said it best. It's our duty to get out there to help save a nation and to defend the truth at all costs. As we go there live now to Karoline Leavitt.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are now in day 3 of the Democrat-led government shutdown. The Democrats continue to recklessly hold the American people hostage over their demands to give illegal aliens free health care. Republicans are fully unified behind passing nonpartisan clean funding bill, the exact same bill that Democrats approved back in March to reopen the federal government. But those same Senate Democrats are now voting against this clean funding bill and keeping the people's government closed. I understand Democrats will have an opportunity very shortly here to change course, and we hope that they will. There are significant personal impacts on millions of Americans as a result of this current government shutdown. The 1.3 million men and women of America's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and Space Force who serve honorably and put their lives on the line to defend us all are not being paid. Military families are already seeking out food assistance because of financial anxiety caused by this Democrat shutdown. According to new reporting from the Military Times, staff members at the Armed Services YMCA food pantry distribution location near Fort Hood in Texas found a line of military families stretched around the side of the building yesterday at 5 in the morning. According to the staff who work there, that is, quote, not happened ever. They've already had a 34% increase this week over past weeks. President Trump and Republicans fundamentally believe we have a sacred responsibility to protect and provide for our military families with the resources they need to thrive. If Democrats believe in this very simple premise too, they should end this shutdown immediately. Unfortunately, the severe impacts of the Democrat shutdown extend beyond our troops. Nearly 7 million mothers, infants, and low-income families who rely on government-run food assistance will be in jeopardy if the WIC program runs out of money in the weeks ahead. The more than 13,000 air traffic controllers who ensure that Americans fly safely in airports across the country are currently working without pay. The National Flood Insurance Program is in danger of lapsing, which could leave families without necessary help if a disaster strikes, and we are in the middle of hurricane season. Critical services offered at Social Security field offices are reduced for senior citizens and disabled Americans. Helpful transition assistance programs are not being provided for veterans who fought to defend our country and are now trying to re-enter civilian life. The economic consequences of this shutdown are piling up every day. Policymakers, markets, and even the Federal Reserve are flying blind at a key juncture because BLS and BEA data are on hold until the government reopens. Democrats shutting down the federal government to give health care to illegal aliens could lead to lower growth and higher unemployment rates for Americans. According to a new memo from the Council of Economic Advisors, the U.S. economy could lose $15 billion of growth domestic product each week. Every single week, the Democrat shutdown extends, with a month-long shutdown leading to an additional 43,000 unemployed people. Small businesses are likely to encounter delays in receiving federal loans. Mortgage applications will likely shrink. And just this morning, Business Roundtable, an association of more than 200 CEOs of Americans' leading companies representing every sector of the U.S. economy, put out a statement urging Congress to pass the clean CR that will once again come before them in the Senate floor in just a few moments. Quote, a fully functioning government is essential for American businesses, workers, and consumers, while policymakers continue working on a full-year funding package and other pressing issues. Again, that is a quote from the Business Roundtable. What's clear is that the Democrats' actions account to an intentional sabotage of our country and our people by shutting down our government. This madness must end. President Trump and Republicans are calling on Democrats to reopen the government immediately on behalf of the American public. All we need are 5 Democrat senators to do the right thing and to stop this shutdown. Call your Democrat senator and tell them to vote yes to reopen the government. On another matter, despite the Democrat shutdown, President Trump's efforts to make America safe again continue. President Trump believes that American cities should be the safest places on earth, and he is committed to making this a reality. We've already seen that President Trump successfully made D.C. safe again in only a few weeks. That same crime crackdown will continue to happen in cities across the country and is happening in Portland, Oregon. President Trump will end the radical left's reign of terror in Portland once and for all. The president has directed Secretary Hegseth to provide all necessary troops to protect war-ravaged Portland and any ICE facilities under siege from attack by Antifa and other left-wing domestic terrorists. What's been allowed to happen in Portland, and we saw disturbing video footage of this last night, this is not peaceful protesting, this is left-wing anarchy that has been destroying this great American city for years, leaving police officers battered, citizens terrorized, and business properties damaged. Since early June alone, Antifa terrorists have laid siege to the ICE field office in South Portland. These radical left-wing lunatics have violently breached the ICE facility by using a stop sign as a battering ram, hurled explosives and other projectiles at law enforcement, repeatedly assault and dox officers, berate their law-abiding neighbors, and have even rolled out a guillotine in front of the ICE facility. And more people should be reporting on that. President Trump has sent federal law enforcement to protect federal assets and arrest those fueling this violence. Just last night, we saw an extremely troubling incident where conservative journalist Nick Sorter was captured on video being taken into custody by the Portland police after he was ambushed by Antifa and was defending himself from these assaults. But instead of arresting these violent mob members night after night after night who are ravaging this community, the police arrested a journalist who was there trying to document the chaos, and everyone in this room should be extremely concerned about that. The Department of Justice spoke with that journalist this morning, and they will be launching a full investigation into his arrest. This incident is part of a troubling trend in Portland where left-wing mobs believe they get to decide who can visit and live in their city. It is not their city. It is the American people's city, and President Trump is going to restore that. I just spoke with the president about this, and he has directed his team here at the White House to begin reviewing aid that can potentially be cut in Portland. We will not fund states that allow anarchy. There will also be an additional surge of federal resources to Portland immediately, including enhanced CBP and ICE resources. Law and order will prevail, and President Trump will make sure of it. With that, I'll take your questions, and we will begin today's briefing with our new media seat, Amanda Head from Just the News. Amanda, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Caroline. On that most recent topic that you mentioned, reportedly Portland police have not been able to engage protesters to the degree that they normally would. Does the president plan on handling this from that angle as well with city leaders?
Yes. From our understanding in the law enforcement that we have here in the Homeland Security Task Force, I spoke with them this morning, and what they're seeing is that unfortunately, local police has been restricted from responding or cooperating at all with federal authorities, which is completely absurd. We have surged federal law enforcement personnel to this city to restore law and order and to work alongside local law enforcement. And we've seen the benefits of this in Washington, D.C. And all of you live here, so you can agree Washington, D.C. is and feels much safer because of the cooperation between federal and local law enforcement. They can and must be working together, and we think it's despicable that these local elected officials who swear an oath to protect their people are preventing law enforcement from doing their jobs on the ground. So that's why the president has directed his team here at the White House, and they are already on it to look into how we can cut funds. And the president wants to work with anyone. If the mayor of Portland were to call him right now and say, "Mr. President, please help us," I am sure the president would be willing to do that. He is genuinely serious about wanting to restore order in America's cities. But it's become apparent that the local and elected officials in Oregon do not feel the same, and that's very unfortunate for the people who live there.
And then one more question on the government shutdown. Should there be some type of scheduled layoffs to maybe entice Democrats to come to the table, like every hour another agency, another 100 pink slips? I'm sure Russ Vought has a list of folks ready to go.
Well, look, the Office of Management and Budget, as we've said repeatedly, is working with the agencies and our cabinet secretaries to identify where cuts unfortunately can and have to be made. And again, we understand there's another vote happening on the Senate floor in an hour. Maybe if Democrats do the right thing, this government shutdown can be over. Our troops can get paid again. We can go back to doing the business of the American people. But if this shutdown continues, as we've said, layoffs are an unfortunate consequence of that. And Russ Vought has been in contact with our cabinet secretaries at their respective agencies to discuss that. Thank you, Amanda. Kelly.
How would this administration define what makes a Democrat agency, which agencies, and what constitutes being a Democrat agency?
I think this administration has been very clear, Kelly, that we're not going to tolerate waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. And we've also been very clear to point out when agencies or when programs do not align with this administration's values of putting our country first. You've seen that with USAID and in various other cases where there's been cuts made or funding has been slashed. And so, again, unfortunately, we're having to do a massive review of the bureaucracy to be good stewards of the American taxpayer dollar. And it's the Democrats who have forced the White House and the president into this position by voting to shut the government down.
You've talked about thousands likely layoffs coming. Do you have an update on the timeline for that? How quickly? And if the government is restored to funding and back in operation, will that list of potential layoffs still be on the table?
Look, as I just stated, the Office of Management and Budget is in constant communication and contact right now with our cabinet secretaries and agencies across the board to identify, unfortunately, where layoffs have to be made and where cuts have to happen. But again, the Democrats have an opportunity to prevent this if they vote to reopen the government. That is all this administration and the president is asking for. Vote for a clean, continuing resolution to keep the government open. Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. During the campaign...
Thank you, Peter.
I was raised to say thank you in the White House briefing room. During the campaign, President Trump said that he did not know anything about Project 2025. Now he knows about it. Is that the blueprint for shrinking the government?
Look, the blueprint is what the president and his team and his cabinet secretaries ultimately decide. And the president trusts his cabinet secretaries to identify where there is waste, fraud, and abuse. We pointed out this morning, or Russ Vought tweeted about this morning, a Chicago rail project that was canceled. We paused $2.1 billion in Chicago infrastructure projects, specifically the Red Line extension and the Red and Purple modernization projects. And it's because the administration is concerned that the Biden administration was handing out taxpayer dollars to pay for this construction based on DEI. DOT is reviewing the race-based contracting on unconstitutional grounds. And in the meantime, the Department of Transportation funds for these projects are on hold. So I guess this answers both of your questions. This would be an example of that.
And just because there's so much shutdown talk, something different. What do you guys think about the NFL's decision to name Bad Bunny as the Super Bowl halftime performer, somebody who has not scheduled shows in the U.S. because he says that he's worried that ICE is going to come and arrest his fans?
Well, look, I know there are many in this room who are very anxious to hear the president's response to Bad Bunny being the halftime show, so I won't get ahead of him. I won't reveal what he feels about this. Next time you all ask him a question, you're welcome to do that. I have my own feelings on that, but that's not what I'm up here to talk about. As far as ICE being at the Super Bowl, as far as I'm aware, there's no tangible plan for that in store right now. However, of course, this administration is always going to arrest and deport illegal immigrants when we find them. If they are criminals, we're going to do the right thing by our country.
Did the president and Russ Vought decide yesterday in their meeting which cuts they wanted to make to agencies and which ones would be permanent?
Again, I've kind of answered this question a few different times now. It's been asked in a few different ways. Their discussions continue between the Office of Management and Budget and cabinet agencies across the board, and they are actively identifying where these cuts and these layoffs have to be made as this government shutdown hopefully does not continue.
And on Hamas, the president said that if Hamas rejects the proposal that Netanyahu would have his full backing to finish the job. A UN report found that Israel was committing genocide in Gaza. Does the president have concerns about the civilians being killed, the worsening humanitarian crisis, and are there limits to what the White House would support when it comes to Israel's actions in Gaza?
Look, the president has deep concerns about all of the atrocities that have taken place in the Middle East over the past few years. It's deeply unfortunate that he inherited this mess from the Biden administration. If you all recall, under President Trump in his first term, the Middle East was on a pathway for peace and prosperity. There was the historic signing of the Abraham Accords. Israel was on a path to normalization between Arab and Gulf nations, and we hope that can continue. But right now, the president has made it very clear to Hamas that this is an acceptable and detailed proposal that they must accept, or the consequences are going to be very grave for them. And he has given them a deadline of Sunday evening at 6 p.m. When I was out here on Wednesday, I told all of you I'll leave it to the president to make that red line, and he now has. I think the entire world should hear the president of the United States loud and clear. And Hamas has an opportunity to accept this plan and to move forward in a peaceful and prosperous manner in the region. And if they don't, the consequences, unfortunately, are going to be very tragic. Michael.
Thank you, Karoline. Has the president declared war on international drug cartels? And if so, or if he will, does he feel he needs congressional approval?
As the White House has said many times, the president has directed these actions, these strikes against Venezuelan drug cartels and these boats, consistent with his responsibility to protect the United States interests abroad and in furtherance of the U.S. national security and foreign policy interests. This is pursuant to his constitutional authority as commander-in-chief and the chief executive to conduct foreign relations. In each of these cases, Michael, the vessels have been assessed by the U.S. intelligence community to be affiliated with designated terrorist organizations engaged at the time in trafficking illicit drugs to our country. The president has been very clear, dating back to the campaign trail, that he is always going to do what's in the best interest of the American homeland. And he also promised the American people he was going to end the drug epidemic that has taken far too many American lives. And you're seeing those actions play out almost every single day here.
Last question on the shutdown, Karoline. Hakeem Jeffries has said that President Trump is in the Presidential Witness Protection Program since the shutdown has begun. What's the White House's reaction to that?
That's just more ridiculous fodder from Jeffries. As you all know, because you're here every day, the president is literally working around the clock right now. I think he has a swearing-in ceremony, or he already did. He has several meetings on the books today. He literally works 24/7. Anyone who works in this place or covers this place, as you all do, knows that to be true. And Hakeem Jeffries and the Senate Democrats should get back to work in a few minutes and vote to reopen the government. Emily.
Thank you, Caroline. You spoke earlier about the energy and infrastructure projects that Director Vogt paused. Will the White House agree to restore that funding as part of a deal to end the shutdown?
Well, I won't make any agreements here. Senate Republicans are talking with their colleagues on the Democrat side, but right now, Russ Vought is doing what he's been tasked to do in the midst of this government shutdown, which is to look at funds that need to be temporarily halted or need to be canceled. And Chicago is just another example of that.
Caroline.
Go to Libby in the back.
Thank you, Caroline. I have two questions for you. One on the FDA, but first on the shutdown.
Sure.
Will the administration, if this government shutdown ends, still move forward with firing thousands of federal workers?
Look, as I've said repeatedly, Libby, right now we want the government to be open. Layoffs are an unfortunate consequence of a government shutdown, and it's something the administration is examining. If the government is reopened, we're going to get back to doing what we were doing last week and the week before, working on the issues that the American people care about.
And then on the FDA, they just approved that new abortion pill, and it's causing a lot of uproar among Republicans. What is the president's response to that, and does the administration plan to have that hold that FDA approval?
Well, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy, has put out several statements on this. The HHS's decision, it's not an endorsement of this drug by any means. They are just simply following the law. And as they put out in their statement, by law, the Secretary of Health and Human Services must approve a generic drug application if the application demonstrates the generic drug is the, quote, same as the brand name drug. Generic applicants are not required to submit independent evidence proving safety and effectiveness. As such, FDA's decision to approve a second generic version does not address the merits of the current safety program. HHS is reviewing adverse effects to ensure that FDA's required safety program for the drug is sufficient to protect women. This safety review equally applies to generic versions of this drug. So FDA and HHS are following the law. It's, again, not an endorsement of the drug itself. Mary.
Thanks, Caroline. Two questions on the shutdown. You've argued that these impending layoffs are necessary to keep essential services up and running, but that has never been the case in any previous shutdown. Even when the government was shut down for 35 days in Trump's first term, you've never had to lay off thousands of workers to keep essential services up and running. So why are layoffs now necessary in this shutdown?
Because we have an administration and we have a president who are wholeheartedly focused on restoring fiscal sanity to our government and doing the right thing by the American taxpayer. We are $37 trillion in debt, and the federal government is currently shut down. There is no more money coming into the federal government's coffers. And as you've also seen since the beginning, in January, this administration is focusing on waste, fraud, and abuse. And so Democrats have given this administration an unenviable choice to have to take a look at the balance sheet and identify where these cuts and layoffs can be made.
And you just said this is an unenviable choice, that this is an unfortunate consequence. But the president has described this as an unprecedented opportunity to lay off additional workers. He's posted a video likening Russ Vought to the Grim Reaper. So which is this? Is this an opportunity to fire more workers or an unfortunate consequence?
Look, the president likes to have a little fun every now and then, and I think both things can be true at the same time. The Democrats have given the administration this opportunity, and we don't like laying people off. Nobody takes joy in that around here, and if you think that, then I think that's very sad. You view the White House and our staff as wanting to put people out of work. Nobody wants to do that, but sometimes in government you have to make tough decisions. Carrie.
Going back to Portland, as far as the city council there is concerned, they appear to be very sympathetic towards the protesters over at the ICE facility. Is the White House considering invoking the Insurrection Act over in Portland? Is that something they are considering also? As far as the Portland City Council is concerned, are they looking at members there who are appear to be helping out these protesters as far as suggesting to get burner phones, et cetera, et cetera?
That's not something I've heard that's under consideration or discussion at this time.
Caroline.
Caroline, who's ever yelling in the back? Go ahead.
Me. Sure. Thank you. Bianca Gracia here, and I have a question. This week, the Democrats have chosen illegals over hard-working Hispanic Americans during Hispanic Heritage Month, causing the White House to cancel the celebration with the president. Is the president open to letting the Hispanics who overwhelmingly voted for him
have their own siesta fiesta in the White House lawn opposed to the fancy, we don't need fancy schmancy, right? You can give us the backyard and we'll fill it all in and have in our own fiesta. Is the president open to that?
I had no idea she was going to ask that question. I just want to preface that. I've never met you. I just want to say that, but welcome to the briefing room. I love your energy. I can't personally unilaterally promise the South Lawn grounds. We have some construction going on out there, but I know that everyone here views it as very unfortunate we had to cancel or hopefully just reschedule the Hispanic American Heritage Month event, and it's because we are working around the clock during this government shutdown. When the Democrats vote to reopen the government, that event will be back in the planning stages. You're welcome. Brian, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the briefing room, by the way. I was with the Secretary of War and the Attorney General in Memphis just the other day as we were going to a command center. And I noticed a billboard along the highway that said, "Memphis welcomes the National Guard." Now, what is your message today to Democrat mayors watching us right now that suffer from TDS and they cannot get Trump out of the way to saving their city, Portland being one of them?
They should do the right thing by their citizens, Brian. They should call the president, they should call the White House and say, we want to work with you. And in Memphis, we are seeing some cooperation. As you saw from that billboard, the people of Memphis are loving this, and they are very grateful for the federal government's efforts. And federal law enforcement is there. We're working alongside local law enforcement. We'd like to see it ramped up a little bit because we want to make progress, and we want to arrest as many bad criminals as we can. Since Monday, I do have some updated statistics from the Homeland Security Council this morning. Since Monday, 153 arrests have been made in Memphis, including 5 gang members. 48 illegal guns have been seized, and 5 missing children have already been recovered. Last night, 60 arrests were made and 21 illegal firearms were seized. Arrests from last night include a suspect wanted for rape of a child under 13, first-degree murder, breaking and entering, aggravated assault, illegal drug possession, and many more. So we continue to see good results coming in through Memphis, and the president is very excited about making Memphis safe again. In the blue.
Thank you. At the top of the briefing, you made a statement about that the Democrats are interested in giving health care to illegal immigrants.
Yes, they are.
U.S. law already prohibits that. It's a 1996 law saying that they cannot give unauthorized immigrants any federally subsidized health care coverage through Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, or the Children's Health Insurance Program. There seems to be a disconnect in the messaging.
Are you denying that Medicaid money has never gone to illegal aliens in the United States of America?
I'm asking you if you can explain the disconnect in the messaging.
I most certainly can. The Democrats' proposal, their continuing resolution, let me just reiterate, the Republicans' continuing resolution was a clean continuing resolution. There was no partisan politics injected into it. There were no conservative wish lists injected to it. What the Republicans want, and still want to this very second, is a clean continuing resolution to fund the United States government. What did the Democrats want in their continuing resolution? They inserted a provision to undo a provision in the Working Families Tax Cut, the One Big Beautiful Bill, that ended taxpayer-funded health care illegal benefits for illegal aliens. Democrats' proposal would require Medicaid to pay more for emergency care provided to illegal aliens than Medicaid does for American patients who are disabled, elderly, or children. And this bill would have also allowed California to continue a gimmick that funds its Medicaid for illegals program. Those are things that we ended, the Trump administration ended, with the passage and the signage of the One Big Beautiful Bill. And it is an undisputed fact, a fact that under the Biden administration, illegal aliens were absolutely receiving taxpayer-funded health care benefits. In fact, in fiscal year 2024, Medicaid costs for emergency services for illegal immigrants skyrocketed by 142% from the previous year to $9.1 billion. That's $9.1 billion taxpayer dollars that were going to emergency services for illegals. Between President Trump's last full fiscal year under his first administration and Joe Biden's last full fiscal year, Medicaid spending on emergency services for illegal immigrants nearly tripled. There was an increase of 196% between 2020 and 2024. And I have a chart here for you, and I'm more than happy to email it to you. I'd also like to add because some were asking dishonest questions yesterday about emergency rooms. In Southern California, according to healthcare professionals in 2023 under the Biden administration, Southern California's, quote, entire healthcare system was being bombarded with illegal immigrants and forcing American patients to endure longer wait times. In Denver, Colorado, the CEO of Denver Health stated that 8,000 illegal immigrants made 20,000 visits to the city's health system in 2023, leaving an uncompensated bill totaling over $10 million. So when an illegal alien goes to the emergency room, who's paying for it? The American taxpayer. The Maine Safety Net Hospital in Denver had to turn away patients due to the massive influx of illegal immigrants into the community, and UC Health Hospitals in 2024 reported their system was under stress from an increasing number of migrants. As a result, according to the head of emergency departments and urgent cares across the hospital system, quote, access is impeded for everyone. These are healthcare professionals who dealt with this directly, and there's a lot more where that came from. It is an undisputed fact that Democrats want to give taxpayer-funded healthcare benefits to illegal immigrants, period. Ed.
Yeah, thank you, Karoline. Is the president talking directly to Democratic senators to try and get their vote for a clean CR?
The Senate Republicans are speaking directly with moderate Democrats. I understand those conversations have become very serious, and we hope positive in the right direction so that Democrats will do the right thing.
I don't know if you saw overnight a refinery in California went up in flames. Is the president going to help the governor should gas prices spike, or could he help the governor?
Look, I know the administration and the White House are aware of that situation that took place. I don't have any announcements for you, Ed, on that.
Has the president seen the first draft of the commemorative coin that the Treasury's doing for the 250th anniversary? It has his face on it.
Oh, I'm not sure if he's seen it, but I'm sure he'll love it. Kara.
Thank you, Caroline. It's now being reported that former President Biden's DHS and TSA placed peaceful January 6 protesters and even Americans who refused to wear masks during COVID onto watch lists usually reserved for terrorists. Most of these people were not charged with crimes. Does the White House have a comment on the prior administration violating the free speech and due process of these Americans? And where is the outrage from the left that claims to stand for due process and free speech? And after that, I have another question about protecting journalists from Antifa.
Sure. Well, Kara, to your first point, please send me that report. That's certainly very concerning. I haven't seen it myself, but if indeed that was happening, it's something I'm sure the Department of Justice and the FBI would deem worthy of looking into.
Well, and journalists, as you mentioned earlier, are being increasingly attacked by leftist protesters. I was actually assaulted outside of President Trump's United Nations speech, and I think the White House is aware that a Portland journalist was almost blinded by an Antifa protester. This has been a problem that's gone on for years, and police often say that their hands are tied. Does the White House have a plan or plan on issuing a statement maybe discouraging this violence against journalists out on the street like me and so many others in this room?
Well, I hope that my statement earlier in the briefing served that purpose, but of course we condemn violence against anyone in this country, and journalists as well, who are exercising their First Amendment right. And there have been so many incredible independent journalists across the country who have gone undercover within Antifa and really have come to understand how this is a growing domestic terrorism threat inside of our country. And I would encourage maybe some of you in this room to get outside the Beltway and go do some of that undercover investigative reporting, because it is really incredible what they found. I met with one of them in my office yesterday, and they're doing very dangerous work in difficult circumstances, and Antifa is a very violent group, as you've experienced and that many others in the media have as well. Christian.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. Following up on Libby, sort of on the other side of the abortion debate, has the president abandoned his campaign pledge to mandate insurance coverage for IVF services?
No.
Was there any update on that? We flew by that May EO deadline for the White House to produce a plan.
I literally just read a statement from the Health and Human Services on for Libby at least. As far as IVF goes, I'll check in with our policy team and we'll get you some updates.
And then on Russia, how concerned is the White House that the Russian Navy seems to be escalating its provocation of NATO allies? I'm talking, of course, to the several close calls they've had with the Danish military during the EU leaders meeting in Copenhagen.
It's something the administration takes very seriously, and we are constantly monitoring it. The National Security Council here at the White House is in constant correspondence with our NATO allies, and the president speaks to many of them as well.
Yes. We've seen a spate of gun violence in this country, both mass shootings. We've seen this
Michigan church that was attacked, children being shot in pews in Minnesota. We've also seen politically motivated assassinations of Minnesota lawmakers, Charlie Kirk. Has any of this made the president or the White House rethink gun safety prevention in this country? Either red flag laws, I know that was a conversation in the first Trump administration, or is there anything on the table right now on gun violence?
Of course, this is an extremely pressing issue for the administration and our entire country. It's deeply alarming to everyone here, the violence that we've seen taking place all over the country, the assassinations that have unfortunately, tragically taken place throughout the last several months. There are many discussions about how to prevent such violence and how we can ensure that law enforcement has the resources they can on the ground to not only respond, but again, to prevent such tragedies from taking place. If there are red flags with an individual in a community, that they are treated as an emergency, a public safety emergency, not just, turn a blind eye to. There's many other things we can do, but the administration and the president has always also made it clear he's always going to protect the constitutional right, the Second Amendment constitutional right of Americans to own guns.
Would you advocate for Congress to pass a federal red flag law? Right now they just incentivize states financially to have red flag laws, but I know Lindsey Graham has worked on this as a Republican. There are some Republicans that do support this kind of gun safety legislation.
I don't want to get ahead of the president on any congressional action or any suggestion to Congress on that matter. Andrew.
Thank you, Caroline. Two things. First, to follow up on something you said earlier about hospitals treating undocumented or illegal aliens. Is it the administration's position that hospitals should not have to treat people who come into the emergency department who are not here legally?
No, that's not our position. Our position is that it's completely unacceptable that the Biden administration paroled and encouraged an invasion of tens of millions of illegal aliens into our country and then promised them free health care. And the Democrats are on the record repeatedly stating that they believe illegal aliens should have health care benefits, free health care benefits in the United States of America. So that is a recipe for a disaster. Of course you're going to encourage a mass illegal invasion of our country, which is exactly what happened. And we've seen the unfortunate consequence of that, where American patients are being put last, where American patients are having to wait in wait rooms, where grandmothers and grandfathers are waiting hours and hours for care because they're being put behind the line to illegal aliens. And we don't agree with that. We don't support that. That's why the administration is desperately trying to fix it and deport the tens of millions of illegal aliens that the Democrats and the Biden administration allowed into our country. And we'd love to continue doing that work so long as the federal government is reopened. And there are many federal law enforcement agents and officers right now who are working without pay. That's unacceptable. The Democrats need to reopen the United States government, and we hope that they will do the right thing on the Senate floor in just a few moments. Thank you, everyone.
So an update from Karoline Leavitt as the Senator Chuck Schumer shutdown continues in the federal city, holding a press briefing this afternoon on a number of topics, including the FDA approving that abortion pill, which I think proves where the Trump campaign was directly on, that it was leaving it to the courts, which then ruled against Roe v. Wade and sent it back to the states to decide. So for all those sounding an alarm that you can't have access to certain things, usually a leftist talking point, nothing could be further from the truth. In addition to that, accusations of illegal aliens never being funded through Medicare, Medicaid, and social services. Karoline Leavitt proving that that has not been the case, even though that there was a late 90s law and then that reiterated in Obamacare in the 2010s, but it's simply an enforcement of the law that seeks to exist at times. We saw with Katie Zachariah coming on the network earlier today that California is doing just that, funding illegal immigrants at the tone of millions to billions of dollars. That is the Social Security, the Medicare and Medicaid that should be going to residents and legal citizens of this country. To updates on the shutdown and the peace process potentially in the Middle East, amongst other questions, as We've seen Portland, Oregon, extraordinarily dangerous. Chicago, Illinois, dangerous as well, with mayors and governors who seek to actually speak truth to power and recognize the reality on the streets of their cities. In fact, Katie Daviscourt, as you did not hear her name but was mentioned in there by another reporter, nearly blinded by Antifa thugs and radicals in the city of Portland. So we'll stay on those stories for you as President Trump breaking news on Truth Social during the press briefing, stating that Hamas has been a ruthless and violent threat for many years in the Middle East. They have killed and made lives unbearably miserable, culminating with the October 7th massacre in Israel. Babies, women, children, old people, and many young men and women, boys and girls getting ready to celebrate their future lives together. As retribution for the October 7th attack on civilization, more than 25,000 Hamas soldiers have already been killed. Most of the rest are surrounded and militarily trapped, just waiting for me to give word go for the lives to be quickly extinguished. As for the rest, we know where and who you are, and you will be hunted down and killed. I am asking that all innocent Palestinians immediately leave this area of potentially great further death for safer parts of Gaza. Everyone will be well cared for by those that are waiting to help. Fortunately for Hamas, however, they will be given one last chance. Great, powerful, and very rich nations in the Middle East and the surrounding areas beyond, together with the United States of America, have agreed with Israel, signing on to peace after 3,000 years in the Middle East. This deal also spares the lives of all remaining Hamas fighters. The details of the document are known to the world, and it is a great one for all. We will have peace in the Middle East one way or another. The violence and the bloodshed will stop, and releases of the hostages, all of them, including the bodies of those that are dead now. An agreement must be reached with Hamas by Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Washington, D.C. time. So 6 p.m. Eastern, every country has signed on. If this last chance agreement is not reached, all hell like no other has ever been seen before will break loose on and against Hamas. There will be peace in the Middle East one way or the other. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald Trump. And I'd heed the warning, Hamas, if you happen to be watching this network, because President Trump also during this just wiped out more Venezuelan cartels, as Karoline Leavitt specifically stating, per the Constitution, as Commander-in-Chief, President Trump has the right to do this. Unclassified details there. Goodbye and rest in hell. The traffickers bringing across the ocean from Venezuela to our country with a potential destination of Florida or along the Gulf Coast, 25 to 50,000 Americans could have been killed by the drugs that were on board that vessel. Now eliminated thanks to our brave United States Coast Guard and military. So Hamas, if you're watching that right there, you will be destroyed if you continue with these antics, as the world is coming to peace thanks to the leadership of President Donald Trump. Thank you for watching this exclusive Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, as we brought you the press briefing today on Friday, October 3rd, of Karoline Leavitt. And please feel free to donate. rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. Our address as well for check and money order: 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. The loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. That's 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Be sure to tune in this weekend to Right Side Broadcasting Network, as President Trump will deliver remarks to America's Navy 250, the Golden Era in Norfolk, Virginia, a beautiful part of the country in the Commonwealth. Naval Station Norfolk will host America's Navy 250, the Titans of the Sea, on Sunday, October 5th, marking 250 years of unbroken sea power and naval dominance, global dominance, in fact, with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, along with Secretary of the Navy John C. Phelan, will join thousands of sailors, veterans, and their families in a historic salute to the world's most powerful Navy. This once-in-a-generation event will honor the Navy's unmatched record of victory at sea, showcasing its cutting-edge fleet and inspire the next generation of warriors to carry America's strength across the ocean. So be sure to tune in on Sunday at 1 Eastern for that exclusive coverage of that as they seek to impede the threats on the west coast of the United States and around the world from China, pledging to be the largest Navy in 2027. But President Trump saying on Tuesday to generals and admirals in that audience at Marine Camp Base Quantico in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we will be the largest fighting force. There's no question about that. And we will build ships again to defend America at the seas. Get all America First updates and exclusive offers right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network by visiting rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. So have a wonderful weekend, but definitely tune in on Sunday for special coverage of America 250, America's Navy, being honored by the President of the United States, the Secretary of War, and the Secretary of the Navy. For all of my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, enjoy this gorgeous Friday. God be with you, and we'll see you very soon.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.